Today we recap a manhwa titled Demonic Evolution. Chapter 1. The story begins with our hero laid helpless on a battlefield surrounded by dead bodies of monsters. His companions have also perished in the battle. During his final moments, he contemplates his failure to eliminate the last of the seven-finned demons. What was unbeknownst to them was the existence of a stronger and more powerful enemy. The eight-finned demon. The shame and regret to live up to his title as the strongest warrior was the only thing he could think of during his hopeless state. The demon stares, then swiftly rushes at him. This was the end of the hero. The last vision he had was the hand of the demon reaching at him. And then, darkness. But what's this? There's light? He's awakened by the loud voices around him. This immediately caused him a lot of confusion as his environment has somehow become very peculiar. Still trying to make sense of everything, he instantly freaks out as he finds out this wasn't his original body. In the distance, a man is giving a speech to the cadets in front of him. He is Ji Yao Tang, Helios City's 3rd squadron leader. Apparently, the apocalypse came during the 3069th year. Monsters appeared and slaughtered humans to near extinction. This led them to invent grafting equipment as a way to fight back against the demons. By recycling the internal cores of the demons, the humans were able to modify and use this to enhance their capabilities. Ji Yao Tang recalls of a man humanity hailed as king among the soldiers. His name was Aang and he was the greatest and strongest warrior. He led the warriors in the battle which was deemed as the strongest demonic wave in history. This battle would go on for weeks to almost dire ends. Eventually, the humans would succeed in repelling the horde of monsters. This, however, would be the last battle of Aang and most of humanity's strongest soldiers. Thanks to their sacrifice, mankind was able to experience 60 years of peace. The hero was shocked upon knowing he had reincarnated after 60 years. Meanwhile, Yao Tang goes on to talk about the seven-finned demons who were responsible for Aang's demise. The hero realized that the people in this era were still unaware of the eight-finned demon. As the squadron leader continues to give his speech, he hears the hero mumbling in the back of the formation. This annoys him, so he confronts the hero. Aang hesitates when Yao Tang asks for his name, as no one would believe he had been reincarnated into his current form. Yao Tang glanced at his name tag and was in disbelief upon seeing he has the same name as the greatest warrior of humanity. This frustrates him so bad that he lands a punch on Aang's face, vowing to keep an eye on him during the upcoming warrior examination. With his reincarnated body's reflexes, Aang was unable to dodge even the simplest attack. Yao Tang then proceeds to the examination area to commence the physical fitness test. Chapter 2. Aang remains lying down after the squad leader's punch. Thankfully, a fellow examinee was there to assist him. He introduced himself as Lan Snow. Because of that incident, his name was now made known to the other cadets, whom began to mock him. One of them was Situ Lu, the eldest daughter of the most renowned martial arts family in Helios City and this batch's most promising cadet. As the examinees proceed to the examination area, Lan Snow helps Aang up, but suddenly a burst of light flashes at them. Another examinee had taken a picture of them. Her name is Suiju Yuhui, and she takes photographs of moments that she might have a distorted interpretation of. At the sports field, the examinees had gathered. Aang seemed overconfident in his abilities and intends to astound the other cadets with his test results. The long-distance endurance test is the first level of the fitness test. As soon as the go signal was fired, he exploded into a sprint. His objectives were to get the highest rank while also breaking the previous record. Reality, however, had a much more disappointing outcome. He did beat the record for the longest time in the long-distance endurance test. His body would not be capable of using the abilities he had in his previous existence. Then, it was time to assess their arms and feet in stages 2 and 3. Given his frail constitution, the results of these physical examinations were bleak. He would now be in danger of failing the test because this would place him at the bottom of all historical records. The examiner informs the squadron commander of this. Given Aang's poor performance in the first round, he contends there was no reason for him to be there. However, Ji Yao Tang accepted that each cadet has a right to take part in the evaluation. He agreed to allow Aang to carry out what seemed to be his final test. It is announced that the second round of the assessment will start. The cadet's skills on grafting equipment synchronization was to be evaluated. With a consistent rate of 96% or higher, Aang was previously the best at synchronization, so this gave him hope. Although his body would fail him in the physical tests, the ability to control one's willpower is what counts in this test. In this test, cables are attached to the examinees to determine their synchronization rate. Situ Liu, whom had continuously mocked Aang during the assessment, is first to be evaluated. Her synchronization rate of 39% impressed the other cadets so much that they declared it the highest result of the year. She nonchalantly leaves the testing area, unconcerned by the men's murmurs of appreciation. She heaves a sigh of relief once the door closed behind her. She manages to control her enthusiasm and regains her calm while feeling proud of what she has accomplished. Even Aang, who was back in the testing area, was amazed by Liu's synchronization rate. 39% was in fact a high number for an evaluation. Snow was standing next to him and makes a statement on Liu's level of willpower. He observes that Aang was not at all anxious, and Aang nonchalantly responds that he was used to it. Snow finds this confusing because they have never taken the assessment before. Numerous rookies who had to endure the grafting equipment exhibited painful faces as the assessment went on. The influence of the demonic core on the body during the initial grafting procedure causes a burden to be placed on the body. Some might give up if they couldn't handle the suffering. In order to pass, one must have at least 10% synchronization rate. Lan Snow was successful, synchronizing at a rate of 24%. Surprisingly, Yu Hui, the delusional photographer, received a 30% rating. Yao Tang and the other supervisor are pleased with these unexpected results because they now have discovered new warriors with potential. They had already been given 6 examinees with synchronization rates of 30% or above. She acknowledges that when compared to other C-rank cities, this current class of rookies is of high quality. But Yao Tang also points out the inferior ones. And this particular inferior cadet is about to take the synchronization test next. Aang looks up and smiles at Yao Tang as he approaches to stage. As Aang walked up to the examination area, the other candidates made fun of him. They expect him to vomit blood because he failed the physical. But Aang was unfazed. This time, he was certain he'll pass. Chapter 3. At the stage, Aang is presented with 4 demonic cores. He chooses the red strength core. Demonic cores recycled from the battlefield can be grouped into 6 categories. The 4 most common cores are the red, green, blue, and yellow. Each color represents a unique power capability. Red for strength, yellow for defense, green for healing, and blue for agility. There's also a 5th uncommon purple core which represents imaginary power. And lastly, the rare black core that represents time and space. Aang is satisfied with his chosen category for synchronization. The red core is inserted into his suit. Once again, Aang reminds himself that willpower is essential for this test since it determines how much burden one can bear from the demonic core. This also determines one's mastery over the core. The grafting has succeeded and the technician prepares Aang to attach the tubes in his suit. Upon insertion, a strong crimson glow is emitted and can be seen on the lounge where the other passers are waiting. Liu notices this and was surprised to see the source of such powerful aura. Meanwhile, on the stage, Aang musters his willpower and shows his critics his true strength. Liu, Yu Hui, and Snow could only stare in awe as the crimson glow gets stronger and stronger. A 40% synchronization rate was reached in an instant. Technicians have begun to worry seeing as the sync rate is still climbing. But Aang was not done showing off. 40% was nothing in comparison to someone who had achieved 96%. He amps up his core once more. His synchronization rate skyrockets from 40% to 60%. This has now become alarming not only for the participants but to Yao Tang and the supervisor as well. They have never before experienced such a high rate of synchronization during an evaluation. At the moment, Aang's sync rate was now at 80%. The examinees began to wonder whether if he cheated or if the machine was defective. However, Aang just stood there basking in the warm glow of his power. The cadets who tormented him would have already knelt down if it weren't for his weak physicality and low-level core. This was the difference between their power. But suddenly, he felt a strange force interrupt him. The force engulfs him, drowning his body into the abyss and into a demon's grasp. He manages to regain consciousness, but somehow his strength had now abruptly left him. The tubes forcefully detached from his body as he spews blood. The monitoring technician is convinced that the machine had malfunctioned as Aang's sync rate instantly dropped to 10%. Just enough to pass Aang. The female supervisor at the deck discovered a flaw in the demonic core, which is probably what caused the issue. Yao Tang was still in a state of disbelief after what he witnessed. He exhaled in relief and verified Aang's sync rate. They just attributed Aang's passing rate due to the demonic core's abnormality. Snow rushed over to help Aang, who is found lying exhausted on the stage. He now regrets ever competing with the brats but is somehow still thankful he managed to pass. Lu can be seen in the distance looking over and collecting her raging inner thoughts of the possibility of someone better than her. Aang's exhausted body is carried out of the testing facility by Snow while Yuhui captures the sweet moments. The weird force that interfered with Aang's exam had him wondering in the lounge. He recalls how it slowly ate away at his heart before instantly draining him of all strength. It had never happened like this before, as he was sure he could reach a sync rate of at least 80%. Even if it was a low-level demonic core, that shouldn't have caused the malfunction. As Aang continued his pondering, the doors opened to reveal Yao Tang. Aang manages to stand up and greet the squadron leader. Yao Tang congratulated them for reaching the final assessment. This time, individuals will experience their first encounter with a monster. This is the practical examination. Aang was left behind as the participants made their way to the evaluation site. Yao Tang stares as an exhausted Aang struggles to walk past him. On the floor, he sees something that Aang had left behind. It was a fragment of the demonic core. This seals his curiosity about Aang. He is anticipating the results of his final exam. Chapter 4. The final examinees have all gathered at the gates of the compound. Not long after, the door opens revealing a barren landscape. This is the cadets' first time being outside, as humans have spent their lives isolated in cities. The officers reminded the participants to inspect their equipment and exit the city, ending excitement and chatter. Aang was given a new strength core, but he highly doubts this was the reason for his loss of power during the synchronization test. It could have been the result of his reincarnation. As Aang casually sets his foot outside the confines of the city, he felt another strange energy emanating from him. It was as if he had sent a ripple of force that detects the monsters across the land. The range had reached a particular demon that sensed his presence and determines Aang as a stronger demon than it. Aang stood there frozen from the fact that the energy resonating from his heart had made it possible for him to identify nearby demons. His shock was cut short as Lu stood behind him impatiently waiting for him to move out of the way. As he makes an effort to apologize to Lu, Snow and Yuhui also arrive. The examiner calls them outside and instructed them to form a group. They were the last set of cadets to form up, thus the four of them were now bound together. Although Lu coldly tells him not to bring the squad down, she is actually relieved because no one wanted to join forces with her. Yuhui questions whether them being in the same group was always Aang's intention. With a commemorative snap, the team proceed to the assessment area. At the venue, large stone monuments are placed called dispelling steel. These stones contain a special substance that can dispel the fog. The examiner begins his orientation. The four-person teams will participate in a trial known as hunting in the fog beyond the walls. Combat daggers and a device for dispelling the fog were provided to the group. Their mission is straightforward: go through the fog to their designated areas, which are marked with flashing lights. The device should then be inserted to clear the fog. Then, hunt finless demons. Their individual strength and team's cooperation are factors to determine whether they pass or fail. For cadets, hunting in the fog beyond the walls is akin to a rite of passage. The unknown perils lying in the mist must be faced by the future warriors. In this test, becoming a warrior depends on more than just physical prowess and talent. The capacity to cooperate and rely on your team, a strong mentality and fearlessness toward the fog, and the capacity to conquer one's fears are more crucial traits. The trial begins. The squadron leaders supervise the progress from above. Dada Gel, the second squadron leader, only has her sights on C2 Lu. First squadron leader Joel is also curious about her capabilities. Yao Tang, however, already set his eyes on Aang. His curiosity on the cadet deepens as the fragment of demonic core he sent for inspection had no defects. His train of thought was halted as Gel gave him a playful knock on the head. The squadron leaders made a brief round of humorous remarks about Yao Tang. Gel, however, who is worried for the cadet's safety, reaffirms the demon's rank in the test area. She wanted to make sure that the location only had finless demons, the weakest monsters to introduce to the examinees. Yao Tang confirms that they made sure of the safety of the participants and that no one-fin demons are to be found within the Helios city's vicinity. If there were, Joel adds, then they'd have to do everything they can to protect this next batch of future warriors. Chapter 5. The examination area has been set up. It was Aang's team's turn to be assessed. Onlookers from other teams are eager to know how the team C2 Lu is in turns out. Aang picks up the device. Lu instantly snatches it from his hand and leads with a sprint. Her inner self tells her more boastful behavior. Aang is starting to get annoyed with her attention-seeking demeanor. They had no choice but to follow her. They trailed behind Lu into the misty forest. They see the beacon's faint red light piercing through the fog. She quickly lunges forward, doing an acrobatic maneuver, and lands near the marker. Lu plunges the device into the receptacle and the fog dissipates. Gel notices Lu's agile physique, which was no worse than the cadets with the blue agility cores, given that Lu has a recovery core equipped. Proof of someone coming from the prestigious C2 family. Back at the trial grounds, finless monsters have started appearing once the fog had vanished. They see Lu alone and started charging at her. Aang quickly orders Snow to use his skill to assist Lu. Snow powers up his defensive yellow core and performs a giant leap, landing in front of her. He uses his defensive abilities to shield Lu and hold off the incoming horde attacks. To be accustomed to utilizing his core's power in a short time. This feat impresses Yao Tang, observing at the distance. Meanwhile, with the repelled monsters thrown off in the air, Aang urges the team to kill them one by one. Each of them had their own monster to deal with. Yu Hui quickly agrees while Lu responds with her attitude. They brace themselves and charge towards the monsters. Round 1. Yu Hui easily dominates her opponent. Stabbing and slashing across its body, her attack is completed with a powerful kick to the gut. Snow strikes the body of the falling creature with a tremendous blow shortly after, sending it flying across the test area. Squad leader Joel notices their solid teamwork, adding a vague comment on Yu Hui's movements. Round 2. It was Lu's turn to show off her skills. She stabs her combat knife deep inside the monster's hide. Her attack has been reinforced by her green core, which causes the monster's body to implode. Lu defeats her opponent without breaking a sweat. Round 3. Lastly, Aang lunges at the monster and ascertains its vital parts. He attacks the neck, then the chest, and finally the abdomen. He tumbles down after the successive attacks and manages to regain composure. Aware of his new body's capabilities, he surmised this should be the time to test its limits. He concentrates and begins activating his red strength core, then bursts towards the monster in a blink. Chapter 6. As Aang charges towards the monster. It attempts to counterattack with a right hook. Aang manages to dodge it and lands a solid blow on its armpit. Aang's reactions clearly weren't quick enough. The monster again counters with a right kick, to which Aang also dodges. Now, switches his dagger to his left hand, he takes a stab at its gut. His body struggles to keep up with the coordination. The angry monster launches another attack. Aang quickly retrieves his dagger and slashes the monster's throat. It wasn't as strong as he hoped it would be, but it was enough to take down the enemy. He still lacked the strength to totally dominate even a finless monster. His teammates were shocked at what they saw. Snow felt Aang was toying with the monster, while Yu Hui kept recording the fight. Lu, however, showed an emotionless facade but deep inside was raging from losing the spotlight. Chapter 6. As Aang charges towards the monster. It attempts to counterattack with a right hook. Aang manages to dodge it and lands a solid blow on its armpit. Aang's reactions clearly weren't quick enough. The monster again counters with a right kick, to which Aang also dodges. Now, switches his dagger to his left hand, he takes a stab at its gut. His body struggles to keep up with the coordination. The angry monster launches another attack. Aang quickly retrieves his dagger and slashes the monster's throat. It wasn't as strong as he hoped it would be, but it was enough to take down the enemy. He still lacked the strength to totally dominate even a finless monster. His teammates were shocked at what they saw. Snow felt Aang was toying with the monster, while Yuhui kept recording the fight. Lu, however, showed an emotionless facade but deep inside was raging from losing the spotlight. From afar, the squad leaders were impressed by how expertly Aang handled the last monster. Yao Tang's suspicions are heightened after witnessing his movements. Back on the exam grounds, Aang evaluated his abilities and concluded that it was a dreadful body in which to reincarnate. He strikes the beast with his finishing blow, but an entity emerges from the ground. It punctured the laying monster with wooden tentacles. A gigantic root-like cage had enveloped the team. Then, the unknown creature arose and ripped like paper through the fallen monster's body. Its head poked out from beneath the cadaver and let out a terrible snarl. Yao Tang and the other leaders were quickly alerted by this display of bloodlust. A one-finned demon has infiltrated the testing area. The cadets are warned to return to the city as soon as possible. Yao Tang and the other squad leaders immediately rushed to the scene. Jel and Joel burst through the exam area and tried to mitigate the commotion. Meanwhile, Aang and his crew were frozen by the sight of the one-finned demon, which was apparently searching the human cadets for the scent of another demon. It emitted an intense aura that constrained them from moving. Even Aang, humanity's finest warrior, felt the dread in front of him. He understands that his body is incapable of combating this monster. Because the one-finned demon couldn't identify the owner of the scent, he decided to bring them all with him. He raised his palm and fired a little energy strike directly at their heads. The crew immediately fell unconscious. The monster was about to abduct them when Jel and Joel broke through his wooden blockade. This was too late, as the one-finned monster quickly retreated to the hole from which it had emerged, bringing Aang and the rest of the squad with him. Despite this, the squadron leaders continued to pursue it. Chapter 7. Jel and Joel located the point where the demon's traces end. Jel still couldn't fathom how a one-finned managed to slip into the area which has been thoroughly checked. Not long, Yao Tang caught up to them. He was agitated upon realizing the two had stopped chasing after the demon. They explained to him that the tracks had stopped where they were standing and beyond that was an uncharted territory. Yao Tang came to his senses, realizing that racing into an unfamiliar location would be a foolish decision. But having been traumatized when he was a child, Yao Tang could only release his frustrations by striking the ground. He blames himself for the event and is indignant that his rigorous inspection was insufficient. Joel advises that they leave the hunt to an exploratory crew and head back to the city. Jel attempts to console Yao Tang, but he shrugged her hand off his shoulder and got back up. He is adamant on continuing the rescue even without them. Joel vehemently disagreed with his careless decision, but Jel cut him off and decided to let Yao Tang go as long as he returned before dark. Yao Tang understood this and continued his search, disappearing in the misty veil. Jel and Joel were aware that Yao Tang's past trauma made any attempt to dissuade him from continuing pointless. It is revealed that when Yao Tang was a child, his younger brother was taken by demons. This incident just serves to relive the pain of losing his sibling and the remorse of being helpless at the time. At the demon's lair, Aang regains consciousness. He is relieved to see his teammates chained and unconscious but still alive. The demon had noticed Aang's reawakening and crept behind him. He is astounded by how rapidly Aang recovered consciousness in comparison to his teammates. As Aang's scent showed significantly higher strength than him, the demon's curiosity surges. The befuddled Aang used this opportunity to break free from his bonds and assault the one-finned demon, who effortlessly avoided it. As the monster attempted to counterattack, Aang was able to avoid and maintain his distance in order to assess the situation. Despite the fact that this isn't his former body, he still needs to save his squad. He remembered his prior understanding of the one-finned demon's strengths and weaknesses upon observing its red core and devised an attack strategy. Now, it's all or nothing. He initiates the attack. But the demon responded fast and struck Aang's body just as he was about to strike a hit. Chapter 8. The one-finned demon was fast. He struck Aang in the right shoulder during the assault. But Aang's strategy included this. In order to execute a close combat counterattack, he required the demon to attack him. He took hold of the demon's arm, locked it, and stabbed its joints, which were its primary weak point. The demon's right limb was severed by Aang, demonstrating his skill in battle. By Aang's skill, the one-finned demon was astounded. Aang wouldn't allow a one-finned demon to look down on him. The demon simply grinned. Suddenly, Aang felt a swift and powerful kick in his stomach. He was flung across the cave and into the wall. This seriously hurt him. The demon then used a healing technique to repair his amputated limb. This surprises Aang, recognizing that it was a demon of the red core wood type with healing abilities. He recalls that only green core demons had that particular skill. He suddenly realized that demons may have mutated over time, giving rise to hybrid enemies like the one he is currently fighting. It seemed like this demon had the upper hand. He signaled by raising his hand, summoning Aang. He was suddenly pierced and dragged toward the demon by wooden tentacles that protruded from the wall behind him. He was grabbed by the head. Weak and defenseless, Aang was no longer able to fight back. Although the demon was still confused of how the potent demon scent came from this frail man's flesh, it didn't matter to him anymore. Because of his pierced lungs, Aang is so badly hurt that he is unable to breathe. And it repeated for him, exactly like the last minutes of his previous existence. His final moments of helplessness, with his new teammates on the verge of death and him powerless to intervene. He apologizes to his squad once again as he starts to pass out. While waiting, the demon kept an eye on Aang to see if he had already passed away. He pondered whether eating Aang would lead him to evolve. He nevertheless made the decision to devour him. However, a strong demonic force had suddenly arisen. An entity that was enraged by the prospect of being eaten had awakened inside Aang. As soon as it sensed this tremendous energy, the one-finned demon hurriedly retreated. Aang was now under the control of this potent demonic force. It seems it had other plans for Aang, thus refused to perish in that way. An ominous aura emerges from Aang's body as his red core fractures. The gigantic aura sprang out of nowhere with fins that simultaneously healed Aang's wounds. As the demonic energy started to cover Aang's body, 6 fins have already materialized. Aang's human form has now completely changed into a demon's body as a result of this. As the demonic entity awakened, an instantaneous burst of tremendous energy erupted from the possessed body, blasting through the cave's roof. The power of the beam eviscerated the nearby monsters. Eventually, the erratic aura subsided, and the entity had finished its transformation. A majestic 8-finned demon was now in front of the one-finned demon, who was trembling in dread as he recognized it. The lesser demon immediately bent down to his knees in response to the 8-finned demon's command to do so. Its silken hair was as white as snow, and its eyes shone like the moon. He told the one-finned monster to say his name. The lesser demon trembled as he uttered, "Crimson-finned King," the name of the 8-finned monster. Chapter 9. Ji Yao Tang continued scouring the misty forest alone. This unknown territory was full of monsters, but they were no match for the squadron leader's might. He breezed through them, overpowering 2 at the same time. Still, there were no signs of the abducted cadets in the area. It was nearing sundown, so he has to make haste and cover more ground. Suddenly, the crimson energy burst from the mountains behind him. The terrifying energy sent ripples of shockwaves towards him, blasting debris of rocks and dust. He suspects Aang and the squad may be where the powerful explosion came from. At the cave, the crimson demon moved closer to the one-finned demon, who cowered even more. The newly awoken demon was curious about this new era. But what he was more interested in was if the demon lords were still the same as when he left. He asked the trembling demon in front of him, who instantly confirmed it. This answer somehow enraged the Crimson King. It seems the 5 demon lords had done him wrong in the past and was living peacefully without guilt ever since. It is revealed that during Aang's final moments 60 years ago, the 8-finned demon had planted its consciousness in his body. The Crimson King chose Aang because he was deemed as humanity's strongest. What he did not expect, however, was after reincarnating, the body would turn out frail and useless. He is so disappointed with the outcome he could choke Aang himself, as if his last shred of consciousness was wasted in such a pathetic situation. What he needed to do now was wait until his body would fully awaken. This could only be achieved if Aang understood how to utilize the finned memories. The finned memories, as the Crimson King explained, were the main ingredients to a demon's evolution. The power levels of a demon is determined by the number of fins it had. The more fins, the higher its power level. This unique ability of demons is why they stood ahead against other races. Apparently, Aang is now the same as them, except that he only needs to devour demons with higher levels than him to evolve. By doing this, he would eventually understand and obtain the finned memories and evolve, a gift bestowed upon him by the Crimson King. The one-finned demon was eager to support the Crimson King's mission. He begged and swore his loyalty to help him awaken. But before he could finish his plea, the Crimson King had already shattered his body to pieces. The king did not consider this one-finned demon's life worthy of assisting him. What it could only offer was its life for Aang to awaken the first fin. He absorbed the one-finned demon's essence into Aang's body, combining the demon gene into the human's. This was the Crimson King's first step to fully awaken Aang's body. As the mixture of genes processed, the demon's form began to crumble, revealing Aang inside. The husk of the Crimson King tears apart as Aang falls down to the ground. The completed demon's gene had entered his core, creating a new combination of demonic power. The Crimson King returns to his slumber once more, into the darkness, until he reawakens. Beyond the darkness, memories of Aang's fallen teammates visited him. His final moments from his previous life have haunted him once more as he recounts his friends die in front of him. But these memories began to turn into a nightmare as the faces of his teammates become terrifying figures that question his existence. Aang awakens abruptly and discovers himself on a bed, wrapped in a blanket. He attempts to confirm his sanity and realizes it was all a dream. Soon, the drapes covering his ward opened, revealing his eagerly awaiting teammates. Tomo suddenly lunged in front of him, intrigued about his new look. Aang leaned back from Tomo as sheer confusion and awkwardness overwhelmed him. He also wondered how the 3 were somehow fine after being taken to the cave by the one-finned demon. Suddenly, a familiar voice spoke behind the curtain. Curious about how Aang had a memory of his abduction, the curtains pulled back fully, and the 3 squadron leaders are revealed. They were eager to know what Aang has to say about what happened in the cave. Chapter 10. Aang sat on his bed surrounded by the 3 squadron leaders. He's surprised by their visit, most especially Ji Yao Tang himself. Gel explained that they were brought back from the cave by Tang Tang. Yao Tang quietly admonishes her for calling him the funny moniker in front of the cadets, but Gel sarcastically complies. The cadets noticed this but tried not to react. Joel added that they found them unconscious outside the cave. The one-finned demon was nowhere in sight at the time, so they were glad to bring them back safely. Gel hands Aang a mirror while explaining that his teammates all awakened earlier but did not seem to have any recollection of the events that transpired in the cave. The only person that was in a coma and had significant changes was him. Aang was surprised when he saw his reflection in the mirror. Parts of his fringes have now turned white. This explains what Tomo meant when she talked about his new look. This confuses Aang even more, as the only thing he could remember in the cave was the time he went unconscious after losing the battle with the one-finned demon. He was torn from keeping it all to himself or confessing everything, including the fact he got reincarnated. But the latter would only make things more complicated, not to mention it wouldn't be even believable. With this, Aang decides to proceed with caution and try to explain the situation as his current persona. He asserted that he only regained consciousness for a short time at the cave, then fell unconscious again. This was how he knew they were brought into the cave. The next time he awoke was at the hospital. Yao Tang was still doubtful with Aang. He remembered the sight at the cave with the blood splattered in the wall. Yet, he did not say a word. Joel chimed in and acknowledged Aang's name being the same as mankind's greatest warrior. He points out his mediocre stats but was impressed at how calm he was during the fight against the monsters. It made him curious if he had prior experience battling with demons. Aang immediately raised his voice to deny it and claims that he was interested in fighting. He reasoned that he had gathered and analyzed all the weaknesses of every demon, thus explaining his calmness during the fight. Jel was impressed upon hearing Aang's meticulousness and suggested that Yao Tang cultivate a splendid warrior like him. Aang cuts in as he remembers they were in the middle of the warrior examination when they were kidnapped. He nervously asks about the results of the exam. Tomo gleefully tells him they have passed. His squad gathered near him. Because of the fateful incident, Yao Tang had formally made them a team. But sadly, they were behind other teams. Every team needs to obtain points in order to pass. They currently have 0 points. Their team could not mobilize because Aang was admitted for 3 days. Aang freaks out upon hearing he had been unconscious for 3 days. Aang is released from the hospital and it was the first day the team is finally out together after the exams. They gathered at the city square and were greeted by their squadron leader Ji Yao Tang. He congratulates them for officially becoming warriors and for being fortunate for returning safely after being abducted by a one-finned demon. The 4 of them is now officially a team and is under Yao Tang's tutelage. This makes them the 9th team under Yao Tang's care. Aang raises a question upon hearing Yao Tang say he hopes they stand out amongst the other teams. It seems being a warrior in this era has become more complicated. From his experience, as soon as cadets became warriors, they'd be sent out immediately into the battlefield. Only by killing demons was how their identity and strength was earned. Aang's ignorance about the small team point ranking makes Snow wonder. This may be because he was a newbie. Apparently, they are currently the lowest in the ranking. The small team point ranking, as Yao Tang explains, is a point system of ranking the teams under the squadron leaders. With this, it can stimulate a healthy competition and improve the teams. By completing missions of different levels, they can obtain points and climb the ranks. And every month, 2 of the squadron leaders' top teams will compete with the other squadron leaders' teams and win prizes. The team that gets last place in the ranking gets punished, which usually means they get demoted to cleaning crew. Aang notices this month's last place team cleaning the streets, realizing why it has been so clean. That team will have to wait until next month to be replaced by that month's last placer. Since the demons keep evolving, the warriors can't relax. This is why the point system is put in place in order to make a breakthrough with competition. After explaining the rules, Yao Tang appoints Situ Lu as the team's leader for having the highest points in the test. She stood proud and firm with her new designation, with her inner thoughts exploding in glee and arrogance. Snow and Tomo instantly agrees, but Aang bitterly disagrees quietly in his mind. Yao Tang wraps up the conversation and told them to take a look at the point system and decide what mission they should take. He dismisses them, but before leaving, reminds the team to be accustomed to their nanoing battlesuits. Lu immediately turns around and proceeds to the mission board to see the available missions. They need to catch up fast since they were already behind. Before she got far, Tomo stops her and proposes they take a picture to commemorate their official team. So they grouped together and posed for the camera. Aang was somehow pleased with the outcome. Somewhere in the distance, the 3 squadron leaders were also grouped up in a conversation. They have been discussing the events in the cave, with Yao Tang having seen the corpse of the exploded demon. Evidence of an unknown demon's blood splattered in the scene leads Yao Tang to suspect Aang. Having a sensitive nose, he seems to always smell an unknown yet familiar scent from him. Jel cuts Yao Tang's train of thought once again as she climbs behind him. She dismisses his suspicions and reminds him to be thankful they got back safe. Telling him that Aang's team had potential, so he needs to take care of them so they won't lose to her team. Joel suggests to keep an eye on him anyway, and inform them if he does find anything suspicious. At the city center's mission board, Aang and the team took a closer look at the available missions. 3 A-rank missions were up for grabs, each with 10 points if completed. Aang was excited to earn the points, but Snow and Tomo immediately cautioned him. Apparently, A-rank missions are the highest and most difficult missions for any team to acquire, hence the large points. It's also why they're the last ones left on the mission board, since the easier and safer missions are taken first. Most A-rank missions often end with severe casualties. It was made clear to Aang what the team needed to do. At the moment, their team leader Lu had approached the mission board and ripped the 3 A-rank missions off it. And simultaneously, Aang and Lu had the same idea: to take all the A-rank missions anyway. Chapter 11. The squad quickly departs towards the jungle to complete their missions. Aang turns on his nanoing suit. His straps extend from his back and form fictitious wings. This is his first time using this new age technology. He tries transforming the wings into a weapon, and a dagger suddenly materialized. He was amazed at the convenience of this new technology. They spot 2 finless monsters ahead. The squad huddled behind a huge boulder as they stalk the monsters. The plan was to eliminate them in one go. Lu gives the go signal and the team quickly dispersed. The monsters noticed them and roared in response. Lu had the assault all planned out. Snow initially obstructs the monsters' line of sight. He will use his reinforcement ability to stomp the earth so forcefully that a massive fissure is made, blocking their front vision. Then, by attacking from the sides and hitting their joints and legs, Aang and Tomo will render them helpless. Snow then hits them hard to lift them off the ground. The last strike is then prepared for Lu in midair. She quickly dispatches the beasts with her dagger. And as her blade is laced with her special skill overload treatment, the monsters implode as she stands proudly at her flawless attack. The fog cleared out as soon as the dispelling steel was installed. The A-rank mission is now finished and the team can finally take a breather. Snow had to admit that this was a lot harder compared to how it was during their examination. Tomo takes hold of a red core fragment that one of the monsters had dropped. This was an A-ranked task, therefore the squad earned 10 points for it. Team leader Lu expressed gratitude to everyone for their efforts. However, Aang was still in awe of the new technology as the finished mission document disintegrated in his grasp. This is because the documents have a chip that connects them to the mission board of the city. As Tomo explains, the leaderboard automatically refreshes the points after a mission is completed. She turns to Aang to look at the remaining missions left. They still had 2 missions left: capture 3 no-fin demons alive and collect 10 no-fin demon cores. Tomo flinched as both tasks were equally challenging. They have only been able to obtain 3 cores thus far. She falls to the ground as a result, appearing to lose heart as tough times lie ahead because other teams are also working hard to score points. Lu steps forward to explain the strategy, which is to complete the 2 leftover A-rank missions and take on more A-rank missions to advance. This somehow boosts the team's morale, as Aang also agrees to their squad leader. Even though it will be a difficult journey for them, he adds, they won't be able to achieve anything if they just stand by and watch. As he delivered his speech, he was reminded of his youthful enthusiasm and the energy it brings to finish tasks with companions. He never anticipated his cynical heart would soften to this new team after living a hard past life losing his old friends. With this, the team is hyped and determined to complete another mission before sundown. Snow had restrained the final monster for their mission to capture 3 no-fin demons alive. Lu is relieved to have managed to contain the monsters before their tranquilizers ran out. She observes Aang gazing bewilderedly at the weapon she is holding and realizes he is unaware of its nature. She demonstrated the weapon while describing how it was made using nanoparticles identical to those in his blade to make a demon tranquilizer gun. She says that although it was a preset novice weapon for the nanoing, it was trickier to utilize. Aang compared this convenient method of capture to his previous experience hunting monsters alive, as they had to forcefully knock them out before. He remembers the researchers complaining about the permanent damage the demon's brain would incur using that method. The team stood there surrounded by dead bodies of monsters. In order for them to capture 3 alive, they had to eliminate an entire group of demons. The task is nearly over. Tomo stretched her muscles as the sun begins to descend the horizon. To avoid being punished for breaking the iron rule, she reminds the group to head back to the city. As Tomo leads the way back, Aang questions whether his present identity even has a place to call home. Lu had to return to her dojo as well. The last step to fulfilling the A-rank mission is for the researchers to locate and retrieve the captured demons. As Lu activates the locating system to send the coordinates, Aang felt a murderous aura nearby. Suddenly, a red streak cuts across the captured demons, just barely missing the team. It was a reinforced bullet that pierced through the monsters. Aang and the squad were too late to stop it as the trajectory bounced off each of the captured demons' bodies, instantly killing them. An arrogant voice from behind them was heard. They turned around and another squad had assembled, including the owner of the gun that shot the magic bullet. The red-headed gunner asked who allowed them to take the A-rank missions. Chapter 12. Aang requests their names without even a touch of hostility. The man brandishing a gun identified himself as Black Gun. They are the team from the earlier evaluation that have joined Yao Tang. That immediately grants them seniority over Aang's squad because they are the squad that came before them. Aang's crew remained silent when Black Gun and his group approached them. They kept harping on the team's hierarchies and how the rookie team didn't seek any permission before hogging the A-rank missions. Because they were inexperienced rookies who disregarded their seniors, they were branded as rebellious. Lu on the sidelines was dumbfounded and still inconsolable, her blood boiling from the slaughter of their captured demons. She found it intolerable that her team had used such effort to contain the demons in order to finish the task only to fail because of these bullies. As they hadn't yet greeted their seniors, Black Gun then asked them to present their leader. Lu seized the opportunity to charge at him. She quickly rushed in and attempted to throw a swift kick. Unfortunately, his reflexes were fast enough to dodge Lu's attack and back out immediately. This disrespectful act infuriated Black Gun. But Lu did not care for any of his words and followed up with a straight punch. Snow and Tomo, on the other hand, moved swiftly to intervene and stopped Lu in time. Tomo made an attempt to argue with Black Gun about how unreasonable they were acting by killing their captured monsters. But Black Gun counters that this has always been the case and that only the gullible would consider it unreasonable. After hearing him refer to them as naive, Lu's rage flares up once more, and Snow and Tomo tighten their grip on her. She would never let this slide. As dusk was falling, Snow turns to Aang to defuse the situation. However, Aang had already charged into Black Gun before he could complete his sentence. And without hesitation, kicked him in the face with such force that his face mask fell off. Given that these so-called rules were unheard of in his previous life, Aang was unable to tolerate the oppression of this so-called senior squad. The brazen act shocks Aang's team, except for Lu, who fully supported his actions. Black Gun laid on the ground furious. He assembles his team to prepare for battle. Tomo and Snow lets go of Lu as she prepares her squad as well for the incoming assault. The battle had erupted and the two squads charged at each other. But before they could land a single strike, an angry figure had intervened between them. Squadron leader Yao Tang had appeared, grabbing both Aang and Black Gun's limbs, canceling their impending attacks at each other. He forcefully throws them back, halting the squad battle. Aang was somehow disappointed at the postponement since he wanted to test this generation of warriors. Yao Tang stood fuming at the behavior of the two squads, disregarding the fact that dusk was approaching. Black Gun contended that Aang and his group were responsible for starting the brawl, but Lu retaliated by calling Black Gun a child for complaining to the squadron leader. Tomo supports Lu by providing photographic proof of the killing. Yao Tang was surprised upon hearing Aang's team had taken on an A-rank mission. He immediately grasped the situation after Lu's explanation. He explained to them that prior squads, like Black Gun, had also experienced this kind of senior-level abuse and harassment. As a rule, it did not matter how they got the points as long as they refrained from harming the other squads. He goes on to say that in the future, they would face far more serious threats than these minor competitions. He reasoned that he didn't halt their fight because it was illegal, but rather because it was becoming late and they needed to get back to the city before nightfall. The two squads settled down and turned to walk back to their city. Yao Tang reprimands Black Gun's squad for their mediocre performance, allowing a rookie team take an A-rank mission and worse, get thrashed in a scrimmage. Black Gun approaches Aang and asks for his name. Upon hearing Aang's name, Black Gun ridicules him for sharing the same name as the King of Warriors. As he walks past Aang, he threatens him to inhibit them from obtaining any points. He swore Aang's squad will rank last at the leaderboard and assures his vengeance for the injury he caused to his face. He picks up his mask and their squad immediately dispersed. Yao Tang is quite knowledgeable about Black Gun and his team. Although Black Gun's crew isn't the strongest, he cautions Lu and her group that they are renowned for their speedy execution. By all means necessary, they will strive to impede the progress of their goal. He warns them that if Black Gun's group went all out during their fight, it might not go in Lu's team's favor because skilled fighters like Black Gun and his proficiency with firearms exist as well. Yao Tang wraps up the scene and orders them to return to the city. Lu keeps her thoughts to herself and proceeds to the path back to the city as well. She passes a spaced-out Aang and commends him for his earlier attack on Black Gun. The group head back together as the sun nears its descent. Aang declines Snow's invitation to dinner as he had other arrangements for the evening. To capture the 3 demons alive by himself. Chapter 13. The full moon hovered above the city as night fell. Public service announcements echoed across the streets reminding the citizens to remain within the city. Near the city gates, Aang is crouched behind large crates to avoid detection. He noticed the people aren't as vigilant as he expected since the whole city is in lockdown. The security was so lax that only a warning sign was posted beside the gate. He squats down beside the ajar gate pondering about the difference between this present city's night operations to his previous life. In the past, they'd engage in nocturnal capture missions as it's easier to capture demons during nighttime due to their abundance. Since Black Gun's squad was determined to obstruct his team's progress, it was only practical to finish missions at an unexpected time. As Aang's thought lingered on planning his night mission, a voice had suddenly spoke and startled him. Leaning on the city wall near him was Lu, who was calm and nonchalant on the outside but inside was bursting with excitement for the imminent night mission. She confronts Aang for staying out so late and close to the city gate. Aang makes an effort to appear foolish and claims that he was only out for a stroll, but Lu is quick to disprove it. Aang concedes and admits to carrying out a night mission to complete their earlier failed A-rank mission and surprise the team. But now that he had been exposed, he decides to call off the operation and asks Lu to refrain from reporting him to their superiors. To Aang's surprise, Lu agrees to the plan and asks to take part in it. Above the city walls, the assigned guards dallied from the boredom of their job. A sleepy guard complained about the gap on the gate, arguing that their job would be easier if they'd just close the gate completely. His partner was quick to scold him as their superiors might hear. He explained the importance of the emergency gate's little opening to his sleepy companion. It was a result of an incident that occurred a few years prior in which a number of refugees were massacred by the monsters only because the gate took too long to open and take them in. Since then, every city has agreed to allow a little opening at their gates to prevent such an occurrence. As the 2 guards were preoccupied from skimming through their adult magazine, Aang and Lu easily slipped past the city gates undetected. They headed straight towards the misty forest and into a secluded area near their examination venue. Aang plans to lure the monsters while Lu knocks them unconscious by aiming for their heads. Lu becomes anxious as Aang disappears in the mist. She is amazed at Aang's confidence walking off into the fog alone, but she soon realizes she is alone as well. She tries to focus amidst the weight of the fog and the pressures it brings to prepare herself once Aang returns with the monsters. And not long after that, Aang appears nearby through the fog, baiting a furious monster with him. She is astounded by how quickly Aang can pick out a single no-fin demon and lure them so she can knock them out. She had never heard of this method of capturing demons alive before, but she found it unique and exciting. She eventually adapted to this approach and made rapid progress. It was just a matter of time before they were essentially playing with the monsters, all thanks to Aang's guidance. That evening, the same 50-year-old strategy was made useful again. Although everything went smoothly, it still required a lot of strength and endurance to accomplish. This had an impact on Aang's new body. Compared to his previous life, capturing finless demons was like playing to him. Lu dragged the final captured demon next to the others. She had been working hard, and she was also worn out. Aang advises that they leave them there as it was a safe location. Since no fin demons lacked intelligence, they were incapable of saving their own kind. In addition, it was far enough away from the city walls to be safe, and since they had been rendered unconscious, they wouldn't soon wake up. Aang suggested they return early the next morning to finish the delivery. From the way Aang masterfully lured the monsters, the effective capturing method, and the overall authority of the operation, Lu asked how he was so knowledgeable about all this. This question gave Aang pause, as he may have shown her a little too much. And just when he thought he was in a tight spot, a horrifying voice suddenly spoke above them. Two one-finned demons were perched on the branches, shocking Aang and Lu. The demons have once again detected a demon scent from Aang, just like they did during their initial encounter in the trial grounds. Aang and Lu stood frozen from the sight of the two demons. Aang, especially, was worried, as he was sure it was impossible to defeat them. Back at the city walls, the three squadron leaders appeared, startling the unaware guards. Joel immediately instructs them to scan the area with spotlight, as the presence of one-finned demons were detected. Jel thought this incident was strange and questioned whether the one-finned demon that showed up at the evaluation was responsible. Yao Tang quickly refuted this, however, having personally seen the carcass of the wood-type demon splattered at the cave. The beams finally pinpoints the location of the two demons. The fact that two of them are one-finned demons alarms them. Baffled by this occurrence, Joel quickly orders the guards to close the city gates to avoid entry and readies the turrets for the assault. Yao Tang, however, postpones the closing of the gates once he notices there were humans close to the demons. He was outraged when he realized who was at the scene as the spotlight illuminated the area. Chapter 14. Jel couldn't figure out how the two ended up in that situation. When Yao Tang saw the creatures restrained close by, he quickly realized what was going on. Joel continued by saying that such careless behavior was typical of all beginners. Yao Tang had to move quickly. After gathering his strength, he leapt toward the forest, promising to punish Aang and Lu severely once this was over. Jel immediately alerted Joel to take command, as she intended to assist Yao Tang. The two squadron leaders burst across the field in a hurry. Yao Tang and Jel were spotted approaching by the demons in the forest. Aang immediately made an effort to protect Lu after realizing the demons were pursuing him, just like the one that abducted them. He still had no recollection of the events that transpired at the cave. Lu toughens up and insists they fight together. This act of bravery was sufficient to cause the two demons to descend and attack them. The red cord demon instantly sneaks up from behind them to target Lu. Aang reacted in time and pushed Lu away from the demon's attack, evading an explosive strike. Lu tries to regain footing and prepares for an attack, as the demon was distracted from complementing Aang's quick reflexes. She delivers a swift kick on the demon's head, but a water skill had activated around the red core demon's body, deflecting Lu's attack. She realized it was the other demon who possessed a water-type ability that blocked her attack and manifested strings to restrain her. The blue core demon had tied her and rendered her helpless. The red core demon resists Aang's attempts to assist Lu, but is suddenly struck in the face with a monstrous blow. The demon was sent flying across the forest by Yao Tang, who arrived just in time. Jel and Yao Tang stood in front of Aang, assuring him of their safety. Jel notices Lu's captor being a blue core water type and the other demon as a red core earth type. The red core demon gets back up, as it had blocked Yao Tang's attack, mitigating its damage. At the gates, Joel readies the cannons to support them, but a warrior came up to inform him of an incoming wave of no-fin demons heading straight towards the city. And just as reported, hordes of monsters emerged, trampling the ground, causing tremors across the forest. The sheer volume of the monster wave swarmed the field outside the city. Joel immediately sounds the alarm to call all warriors within the city to prepare for combat. Warriors from all over the city are now alerted and assembled at the city walls to prepare for the demon wave. Back at the forest, Yao Tang, Aang, and Jel noticed the demon wave and deduced the one-finned demons had caused this. Lu, who was still bound by the water demon, urges his comrades to return to the city instead and aid the defense. The blue cord demon found her noisy and covered her mouth using its water skill. The three warriors proceed to rescue Lu, but the red core demon creates a fissure that impeded their charge. Yao Tang and Jel managed to evade the spikes directed at them, but what was surprising was the attack completely missed Aang. He notices this and was confused as to why it did not target him. What was conclusive of this theory was the fact that the red core demon passed him and went straight to the two squadron leaders as it attacked. Yao Tang also notices this unusual behavior of the one-fin demon, but he did not have time to contemplate as the red core demon showered them with a barrage of attacks. Meanwhile, the blue core demon taking hold of Lu calls Aang as if it was luring him away. Aang took a moment to think about his next step as he realizes this might be a trap. He stood there pondering his limitations and the best action during this situation. Gel and Yao Tang firmly advised him to refrain from following the blue core demon as it was beyond his power and capability. Aang was now torn from making his next step. But then, the last image of Lu had been imprinted in his mind, which was similar to his fallen comrades from his past life. He knew he could never forgive himself if he abandoned a teammate to die. He already knew what to do. He was determined to get Lu back. Chapter 15. The demon set Lu down deep in the forest. The monster's special water ability keeps her restrained and muted. The one-fin demon acknowledges that their type has always been fascinated by human emotions. It craved the sound of human cries of desperation and begging. When the monster noticed that Lu's mouth was still covered, it took off the covering to satiate its curiosity. Now that the covering is gone, the demon ordered Lu to helplessly cry out and scream. However, Lu was brought up in a martial household and has been instilled with the values and discipline of a warrior. She would only embarrass her family if she tried to beg in front of an adversary out of cowardice. She refused to give in to the demon's demands. She gives the demon two options: kill her or engage in combat once more. The one-finned monster is enraged by this and gives Lu a hard kick to the head. The creature emphasized to her that she was only human bait and would soon be eliminated. The monster's attention was suddenly drawn by a familiar voice. It was Aang who finally arrived to Lu's rescue. The one-finned demon rejoiced as his trap had succeeded in luring him. Lu was confused by the consecutive events unfolding in front of her. The fact that Aang had come alone and the demon intending to lure him specifically was something she least expected. She warns Aang to stay away, assuming this would not be a fair fight against the one-finned demon. Because of that, the demon gave her another blow to the stomach as it had been annoyed by her rambling. Upon witnessing Lu suffer injury, Aang volunteered to step in and replace her. Although the demon acknowledges Aang's proposal, its original goal was to eliminate them both. Aang engages the slithering creature with his combat knife, but the creature quickly sidesteps Aang's move and strikes him in the side. It showed Aang its water ability by moving around and emitting an elemental property as it attacked. Aang is surprised by this because in his previous life, monsters lacked this water attribute. Lu watched helplessly from the side as Aang battled to protect himself from the onslaught of blows. She spots a sharp protrusion from the ground nearby, and it gives her hope for a method to liberate herself. While Aang and the demon engage in combat in the backdrop, she wiggles her way in the direction of the rock. When the water demon's hand splattered during his block, Aang saw an opportunity to strike. However, this was all a part of the demon's scheme to hold him captive. With his water ability, the demon had trapped Aang's other hand. It wondered how Aang was so weak. After all, it assumed that Aang was the one responsible for eliminating the other one-finned demon at the cave. The demon believed Aang was lying. However, Aang had no memory of the incident, so all the demon's charges simply bewildered him. After witnessing Aang's lackluster performance, the water demon finally lost patience and chose to break Aang's limbs. The demon breaks both of Aang's arms, which it had previously imprisoned in its water abilities, and kicks him across the forest. The force of the impact on his body was sufficient to render him instantly immobile and induce a catatonic state. Lu could still be seen in the distance, her arms bleeding from straining to free herself from the bonds with the jagged rock. She must free herself and assist Aang right away. The creature moves toward Aang. It now plans to devour him as this would help its evolution. Before it could grab Aang's helpless body, Lu had attempted to attack from behind. Lu was able to kick the demon aside even though it had avoided her dagger, giving Aang the necessary room to be protected. The human's tenacity startled the water demon. Laying there still conscious, Aang marveled at their squad leader's unwavering bravery and determination to keep him safe no matter what. After witnessing this blatant act of bravery, the demon demonstrates yet another water skill. Water discharged from its body started to solidify into pieces of shards. Now these fragments were set to rain on her and Aang. Aang tells Lu to dodge these shards instead, but she chooses to block each one to protect him. When the water demon sees that Lu is able to repel its attacks, it resorts to more cunning strategies. The demon controls the broken shards on the ground by using its water ability. This gave the demon the perfect opportunity to penetrate her repeatedly and pull Lu's body in its direction. Lu flew into the grasp of the one-finned demon. Now that it had Lu by the throat, the demon was getting ready to carry out even darker schemes. Chapter 16. Laid on the ground, Aang witnessed the one-finned demon choking Lu. A wave of sadness washed over him as he realized that, after reincarnating after 60 years, he was once again witnessing the death of comrades. Feelings of worthlessness and shame engulfed him, questioning why, despite being considered the strongest warrior in his past life, he now relied on a young lady for protection. The core fragment on his chest began to crack, the result of a combination of his rage and self-pity, activating a sinister aura reminiscent of the one that emerged during his last moments in the cave during his abduction. The demon, in the midst of choking Lu, sensed a monstrous energy burst behind him. In an instant, Aang snatched Lu from the demon's grasp. Crimson aura surrounded Aang, akin to when the eight-finned demon awakened in the cave. The one-finned demon, realizing that Aang's power surpassed expectations, experienced injury from the mere wind pressure during Aang's rescue of Lu. Holding the injured Lu in his arms, Aang expressed gratitude for her leadership and bravery in facing the powerful one-finned demon. Lu, nearly unconscious and battered, could barely see Aang's face, which had now undergone a transformation. His eyes seemed demonic. Aang reassured Lu, urging her to rest while entrusting everything to him. Gently laying Lu down to rest, Aang prepared to confront the one-finned water demon, now drawn to an even stronger demonic scent emanating from Aang. The demon speculated that Aang's secret lay in his ability to emit a demon scent. Aang turned to face the demon, uncertain about the transformation but aware of it this time. Enveloped by a menacing crimson demonic aura, he felt his power spike dramatically. Emitting a powerful scream, the power core in his chest, once a socket for the core fragment, had transformed into what the demon identified as the Kingfin's core. Aang slowly distanced himself from Lu and advanced towards the demon. His appearance had undergone a transformation, revealing a demon's horn and sharp claws, indicating the awakening of the one-finned form. Meanwhile, in the forest clearing, Zhel and Yao Tang continued their combat with the other one-finned demon. The distracted demon, sensing the monstrous aura, became vulnerable. Seizing the opportunity, Yao Tang struck, and Zhel followed with a powerful kick, sending the demon flying. Recognizing the overwhelming power of the two squadron leaders, the demon couldn't defend itself against their relentless attacks. A powerful blow from Yao Tang opened a hole in its chest. Realizing the tide had turned, the demon chose to self-destruct. Zhel quickly noticed this and moved to shield Yao Tang from the impending explosion. The red-cored demon's core glowed brightly, signaling its intent to detonate and take the warriors with it. However, a golden streak, like lightning, struck the demon, impaling it with a harpoon and killing it instantly. The squadron leaders realized the city's defensive artillery had intervened, aiding them in vanquishing the demon. Outside the city gates, warriors continued to battle the wave of monsters attempting to invade. Squadron leader Joel acknowledged the overwhelming numbers and questioned if the city's defenses could hold. Concerned, he called out to Yao Tang and Zhel, urging them to return to the city and assist with the defense. Despite Yao Tang's hesitation, knowing Aang and Lu were still in the forest facing the other one-finned demon, Zhel appealed to his sense of duty, reminding him that as warriors, their priority was the city's defense. Reluctantly, Yao Tang decided to return to the city, leaving the forest and Lu's safety in the hands of Aang. In the deep forest, Lu lay unconscious as Aang confronted the water demon. The demon, visibly frightened by Aang's new demonic form, trembled and slowly retreated as Aang approached, clearly confused by the sudden turn of events. Aang, realizing the fear instilled in the water demon, concluded that his reincarnation and the acquisition of demonic power were meant to bring about significant change. With a lift of his finger, Aang emitted a small green energy, directing it towards Lu. This green aura possessed the healing power of a wood-type demon, instantly mending Lu's injuries. The water demon was astonished at Aang's newfound attributes. Aang's memory vaguely recalled the cave incident, speculating that the healing power he now possessed was a result of absorbing the wood-type demon during that encounter. Now, his attention shifted to the water-type demon. As he approached, roots suddenly emerged from the ground, a skill inherited from the absorbed wood-type demon. The thought crossed Aang's mind that absorbing the water demon might grant him water-based powers. Terrified by Aang's display of power, the water demon found itself surrounded by towering roots. Aang, elevated on a platform made of wood, gazed down upon the water demon like a king on a throne observing a peasant. Excitement filled Aang as he anticipated exploring the full extent of his newfound demonic abilities. Chapter 17. Upon learning of Aang's intention to absorb it, the water demon grew even more terrified. Amused by the unprecedented fear displayed by the demon, Aang, utilizing his wood-type power, propelled himself towards it in an instant. He taunted the demon to unleash its full force to test his newfound demonic abilities. Despite its confusion about Aang's identity, the water demon attacked. Aang effortlessly blocked the assault and prepared for a counterattack, recalling the wood-type skill he inherited from the absorbed demon. Roots resembling tentacles emerged from the ground, swiftly restraining the water demon. Aang, in complete control of the roots, tightened his grip, effectively immobilizing the demon. Forced to resort to its trump card, the water demon transformed into a watery form to escape the binds and launched another attack. Though successful in tearing Aang's arm, the demon grew confident, believing it had the upper hand, as wood-type demons lack the ability to disintegrate like water types. The demon continued its assault, throwing Aang into the trees. Despite seeming overwhelmed, Aang maintained a confident smile. Admitting his unfamiliarity with harnessing demonic power, he asserted his identity as Aang, the strongest warrior, skilled at learning new things. Activating his wood-type ability, he materialized a new arm, shocking the water demon with the rapid acquisition of the skill. Prepared for retaliation, Aang lunged towards the water demon, utilizing protruding roots from the ground he summoned to accelerate himself. Simultaneously, he used the roots to grab the demon's foot, hindering its movement. In an instant, Aang reached the demon, face to face, and seized its head. Slowly sinking his fingers into the water demon's skull, he infused its insides with wood-type energy. Similar to Lu's skill, the water demon imploded due to the overwhelming energy Aang fed it. However, as the demon was able to disintegrate itself into a watery form, it reformed and attempted a surprise attack from behind. Anticipating the move, Aang summoned sharp wooden roots from the ground, impaling the demon and preventing any unexpected assault. Ensuring the separation of the demon's core from its body, Aang left the water demon reaching at its blue core in despair, realizing its imminent demise. Aang quickly snatched the blue core before the demon could grasp it, solidifying the possibility of absorbing its water powers. In moments, the water demon perished, dissolving into liquid form, unable to materialize again due to the absence of the demon core. Holding the blue core above him, Aang shattered it, releasing a blue liquid. Without hesitation, he consumed the essence of the water demon, allowing the demonic thoughts to invade his psyche. Chapter 18. Aang remarked that the water demon's essence didn't taste as repugnant as expected. He cast a brief glance at Lu, who lay unconscious beneath the healing dome he had conjured. Suddenly, Aang underwent a remarkable transformation, assuming a liquid form and flowing towards Lu. There, he rematerialized into his original body, similar to the water demon's ability. However, this time, his appearance differed significantly. His eyes mirrored those of the eight-finned demon, glowing yellow and condescending as he gazed upon Lu. In an alarming turn, the persona of the eight-finned demon took control of Aang, and he moved to attack Lu. Breaking the healing dome, Aang, now under the demonic influence, came perilously close to ending Lu's life. In a desperate struggle, Aang partially snapped out of the possession, managing to deflect the impending attack with his other hand. Battling the malevolent voice commanding him to harm his teammate, Aang screamed with all his might, striving to break free from the clutches of the eight-finned demon in his body. The demon, forced to retreat into the shadows of Aang's consciousness, was astonished that Aang had resisted the possession, finding amusement in the unexpected turn of events. At the city gates, the skirmish between the warriors and the invading monsters raged on. Snow and Tomo fought valiantly against the climbing monsters atop the wall. Amidst the chaos, Snow grew concerned about the absence of Aang and Lu. Tomo relayed the rumors of two warriors encountering one-finned demons outside the city, likely referring to them. Shocked by this revelation, Snow resolved to focus on defending the city, unable to fathom another encounter with a formidable one-finned demon. Meanwhile, Gel and Yao Tang hastened towards the wall, battling through the horde of monsters. Joel, finally reunited with his fellow squadron leaders, inquired about the condition of Yao Tang and Gel's cores, considering the potential depletion from excessive power usage. Yao Tang assured Joel that their cores were not overly strained, having collaborated efficiently during the confrontation with the one-finned demon, thereby conserving their energy. Seeking guidance for their next move, Gel turned to Joel. Joel noted that with Yao Tang and Gel successfully eliminating one of the one-finned demons and the other retreating deep into the forest, the no-finned monsters had significantly decreased. Left without a commander, these monsters now attacked aimlessly. Although these monsters had no thoughts of their own, they still understood the idea of fearing death, so Joel emphasized the strategic advantage in capitalizing on this vulnerability. In unanimous agreement, the three squadron leaders convened, preparing to unleash a relentless assault on the monsters. As they huddled together, they powered up and executed a synchronized attack, showcasing the explosive force inherent in their collective might. Yao Tang candidly admitted that if their cores and bodies had no limitations, he would be capable of maintaining the formidable form and continuing to vanquish demons. Not to be outdone, Joel, fueled by a desire to match Yao Tang's prowess, demonstrated the power of the Blue Agility Core. He effortlessly dispatched the monsters in an instant, leaving Snow and Tomo in awe as they witnessed the formidable display of their squadron leader's abilities. The trio regrouped as the horde of monsters near the gates gradually dispersed, a clear indication that their plan had succeeded. Joel expressed his satisfaction at the monsters retreating, directing the warriors to replenish their strength and continue driving the monsters away from the city. The warriors rejoiced upon hearing the news, grateful for the formidable leadership of their three squadron leaders. However, amidst the celebration, Joel suddenly sensed a foreboding presence. He urgently warned the others, sensing a terrifying force approaching. Gel and Yao Tang also detected the ominous energy and speculated whether it was the other one-finned demon that had retreated into the woods. Behind the dissipating fog that veiled the figure, a glowing red core can be vaguely seen. Shock and disbelief gripped the trio as they witnessed this unexpected sight. As the figure drew closer, the monsters made way, and the fog dissipated, revealing none other than Aang, carrying the unconscious Lu in his arms. Chapter 19. Aang strolled undisturbed amidst the menacing monsters, making his way toward the city gates, with Lu cradled in his arms. The demonic horn and claws that had manifested earlier had vanished, seemingly revealing his return to his original human appearance. The squadron leaders are bewildered, grappled with the mystery of Aang's survival and the fate of the other one-finned demon. Joel, alarmed by Aang's seemingly casual approach amid the monster horde, recognized the ongoing threat and the potential danger to Aang. Yao Tang, understanding the situation, swiftly moved to aid Aang and prevent the monsters from attacking him. As the monsters leapt forward to attack Aang, he halted, stared at them with a menacing glare showing his yellow demonic eyes, commanding them to be gone. Responding to his monstrous energy, the monsters instantly recoiled. One particularly terrified demon even bowed to Aang before hastily retreating. Witnessing this astonishing display, the other monsters followed suit, hastily retreating from Aang. Yao Tang and Gel, en route to assist Aang, halted in their tracks, astonished by the surreal scene unfolding before them. The warriors within the city gates, noticing the sudden retreat of the invading monsters, erupted in celebration once again, attributing the victory to their three squadron leaders. However, the squadron leaders, hearing the gratitude, harbored doubts about their role in the monsters' withdrawal. Yao Tang, in particular, suspected that Aang played a crucial part in this unexpected turn of events. As Aang approached the trio of squadron leaders, he dropped to his knees, drained of his remaining energy, and collapsed, dropping Lu in the process. His vision blurred, and consciousness slipped away. His last sight before succumbing to unconsciousness was the squadron leaders hurrying to his aid. In a shadowy, otherworldly realm, Aang awoke, finding himself lying atop a massive demonic skull. The haunting voice of the eight-finned demon resonated, prompting Aang to inquire about its name. The demon, evoking memories of their initial encounter in a previous life, materialized beside Aang. It formally introduced itself as the Crimson-Finned King, asserting its status as the mightiest among eight-finned demons. Observing that Aang's lack of fear in the presence of such power explains his ability to resist possession, to which the demon was even more amused. A barrage of questions flooded Aang's mind: why he was chosen, and the nature of the changes occurring within his body. The Crimson-Finned King, with an air of authority, assured Aang that he would learn of its plans in due time, advising against haste. Playfully, the demon suggested the need to share Aang's body for mutual protection while gradually perfecting the evolutionary process. Aang, finding the notion absurd and offensive, rose abruptly, attempting to strike the demon. However, the scene abruptly shifted, and Aang awoke from what seemed to be a dream. To his astonishment, he found himself clutching Lu's clothes, poised to strike her instead of the demonic entity. In the room, Tomo and Snow, along with several aides, observed the unfolding situation. A dreadful realization dawned upon Aang as he had apparently undressed Lu during the struggle, unintentionally exposing part of her chest. Lu, infuriated by Aang's actions, retaliated with an angry slap, her aides joining in to reprimand Aang for his inappropriate behavior. The three squadron leaders arrived just in time to prevent Lu from inflicting further harm upon Aang, despite his questionable behavior. Recognizing Aang as Lu's savior, they asserted that such treatment was inappropriate. Accompanying them was Lu's father, Sichu Shuangong, who garnered immediate respect as they all bowed in unison upon his entrance. Aang, still on the floor from the beating, looked up and acknowledged Lu's father. Joel introduced him as Sichu Shuangong, head of the renowned Sichu family in Helios City, though Aang, having been under his care before, felt a sense of recognition and promptly expressed his gratitude. Sichu Shuangong, a reasonable man, acknowledged Aang's pivotal role in saving his daughter's life. He deemed it fitting for Aang to be taken care of, expressing the family's gratitude. In an authoritative tone, he instructed the squadron leaders to announce that everyone could rest in his dojo, and a celebration would be held to commemorate the successful repulsion of the demon wave. The squadron leaders, appreciative but mindful of their potential burden, apologized for inconveniencing him. However, Sichu Shuangong, having known them since their youth, insisted that they treat his dojo as their home. Furthermore, Sichu Shuangong issued a specific directive regarding Lu. Despite being his daughter, he urged the squadron leaders not to show her any special treatment. Instead, he emphasized the importance of treating her like any other warrior, disciplining and training her without favoritism. This directive underscored his commitment to maintaining fairness and instilling discipline, even within the bounds of family ties. Yao Tang gladly obliged to Sichu Shuangong's request but skillfully redirected the conversation. He requested everyone except Aang to leave the room, hinting that the squadron leaders needed to inquire about the events in the forest. Aang took a seat on the bed as the three leaders began the interrogation. Yao Tang phrased his inquiries carefully, giving the impression that he was hesitant to bring up a very important topic. Joel notices this and stepped in right away and asked Aang directly if he was perhaps a demon. Thank you for joining me on another thrilling journey of demonic evolution manhwa. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates. Your support fuels my passion to bring you more exciting content. Stay tuned for more captivating chapters only here on JockJut Manhwa. Until our next adventure together. Chapter 20. Aang was taken aback by the squadron leader's question. The three squadron leaders awaited Aang's response as he stared at them with a shocked and speechless expression. Quickly, Aang sought a way to extricate himself from the situation by feigning ignorance. Joel followed up with a speculative inquiry, suggesting that Aang might have eliminated the one-finned demon, explaining why he and Lu emerged from the forest unscathed. He pressed Aang for more details on their escape. This time, Aang found himself backed into a corner, unable to conjure any more excuses. Joel's suspicion of Aang being an accomplice to the one-finned demon intensified. Aang contemplated that revealing his true identity could lead to dire consequences, even his demise at the hands of the squadron leaders. His predicament worsened as Joel threatened violence if Aang remained silent. Fortunately, Jel intervened to diffuse the tension. She argued that only demons with 4 or more fins could assume human form, and Aang did not fit that description. Moreover, even if such a transformation were possible, it would be illogical for a high-ranking demon to visit a low-ranking city. Yao Tang added that demons lack the concept of solidarity, being known for their selfish and ruthless nature. This contradicted Joel's suspicions, given that Aang had risked his life to save Lu. Yao Tang's statement solidified the notion that Aang was not a demon. Joel, faced with these facts, abruptly shifted to a more light-hearted demeanor, admitting he had been teasing Aang all along. He acknowledged that Aang and Lu had undergone a traumatic experience, narrowly escaping death. However, Yao Tang remained curious about how Aang had survived the encounter with the one-finned demon, given Lu's account of losing consciousness during the fight and having no recollection afterward. Aang was caught off guard once again, scrambling to put together an alibi for their escape. He quickly thought of a plausible explanation, proclaiming himself a genius. The squadron leaders found this assertion absurd, prompting Aang to clarify that he could instantly absorb his core's energy and utilize it to its full potential. Jel seized this opportunity to inquire whether this skill resembled the squadron leader's method of activating their core's energy. Aang promptly affirmed, seeing this as a chance to dispel their suspicions. The 3 squadron leaders exchanged glances upon hearing Aang's claims. Joel commented that, if true, Aang was indeed a genius. He questioned Aang about using this technique to defeat the one-finned demon during their abduction in the cave, to which Aang readily confirmed. Aang recounted that this incident marked the first time he discovered his potential. He felt a surge of energy, absorbing it into his body and using it to launch an explosive attack, ultimately vanquishing the demon. In the recent incident, he used the same method to save Lu from the one-finned water demon. The strain on his body from the sudden energy surge explained his collapse upon their return. Upon hearing Aang's explanation, Yao Tang recalled instances of finding Aang's energy core fragmented multiple times. The idea that Aang had pushed the core beyond its capacity, leading to its shattered state, seemed plausible. Still, Yao Tang remained skeptical, pondering whether this could truly be attributed solely to Aang's proclaimed genius. Jel chimed in, expressing doubt about Aang's control over his ability. She acknowledged that, if Aang's claims were accurate, his power surpassed his current level of mastery. Controlling such a potent ability required extensive training, a sentiment echoed by the squadron leaders who had invested considerable effort in honing their skills to minimize the toll on their bodies. Jel advised Aang to refrain from using this power extensively until he had acquired the capability to control it fully, emphasizing the potential danger to his life. With this caution in mind, Yao Tang conceived an idea. He proposed putting Aang's power to the test to assess its authenticity. If Aang truly possessed genius-level abilities, this would become apparent in the arena. Yao Tang invited Aang to partake in the evaluation. Outside the dojo, Aang and Yao Tang prepared for the bout. Despite Aang sensing Yao Tang's skepticism, he recognized his current physical limitations. Though Yao Tang's skills were deemed mediocre in Aang's past life, he acknowledged his inability to match Yao Tang's present prowess and contemplates on using his secret demonic power. Yao Tang initiated a rapid succession of attacks. Aang, fortunately, evaded them, but the force behind Yao Tang's strikes was evident, causing the arena ground to shatter. Jel noted the intensity of Yao Tang's assaults and cautioned him against overdoing it, reminding him that Aang was a subordinate. Yao Tang commended Aang's quick reflexes but intensified his efforts, delivering a powerful strike that shattered a large part of the arena. Aang, still managing to evade the attack, found himself caught in Yao Tang's grip. Helpless, Aang realized his physical strength fell short of matching his opponent's overwhelming power. Yao Tang effortlessly threw Aang against the arena wall. Concerned, Jel and Joel debated ending the test, but Jel insisted on giving it more time. Disappointed with Aang's performance, Yao Tang remarked that calling oneself a genius was unwarranted with such limited abilities. Feeling provoked and disliking being underestimated, Aang's pride as the greatest warrior from his past life surfaced. Determined to prove his genius, he acknowledged the need to reach his past level. Faced with the prospect of borrowing demonic power from the Crimson King, Aang activated his core, enveloping his body in a potent crimson aura. The squadron leaders were astonished by Aang's sudden burst of aura. As his past persona seemed to manifest within the aura, Yao Tang was overwhelmed, recognizing aspects of Aang's former self. Aang warned Yao Tang that it was now his turn to attack. Chapter 21. Aang marveled at the way the demonic energy seemed to amplify his synchronization level. The squadron leaders, too, were astounded, witnessing what appeared to be the emergence of Helios City's long-awaited genius warrior. Yao Tang found himself overwhelmed by the substantial spike in Aang's synchronization levels, now reaching 40% and still on the rise. He couldn't help but recall that during the test, Lu had achieved only 39%. Drawing attention to himself, Aang cautioned Yao Tang not to be distracted as he prepared to launch an attack. In an instant, Aang delivered a powerful blow, which Yao Tang expertly blocked. However, Yao Tang was fascinated by Aang's increased speed and overall prowess. To his surprise, Aang had a follow-up attack ready, revealing that the initial punch had been a mere feint. Aang swiftly swept Yao Tang's legs, causing him to lose balance. Seizing the opportunity, Aang received commendation from Yao Tang for capitalizing on the brief distraction. With Yao Tang off balance, Aang executed a powerful kick, leaving Joel in awe of Aang's combat expertise. An additional observer behind them noted that engaging in close combat against someone renowned for their close combat skills was ill-advised. Intrigued, Jel and Joel turned to identify the commentator, discovering that Shuan Gong had been quietly observing the spectacle from behind. The revelation added a new layer of significance to Aang's remarkable display. The two squadron leaders felt a bit embarrassed about having to use Shuan Gong's arena for their assessment, despite calling it a minor inconvenience even though the arena had been wrecked. Shuan Gong, however, didn't mind the damage, as he was eager to witness how someone sharing the name of the greatest warrior in history would fare against Yao Tang. Meanwhile, at the arena, Yao Tang caught Aang's foot the moment he attempted a kick. Observing the scene, Shuan Gong was reminded of a young Yao Tang and his dedicated training that had made him exceptionally skilled at close combat. Seeing Yao Tang seize Aang's foot, Shuan Gong anticipated a challenging lesson for Aang. However, as Yao Tang attempted to attack Aang, it became apparent that Aang had calculated this move all along. Aang maneuvered his body to deliver a strong headbutt, freeing himself from Yao Tang's grip. Now, it was Aang's turn to take the offensive, and Yao Tang, ready for the challenge, left Joel on the sidelines fearing Yao Tang would no longer hold back. Yao Tang slammed his fist into the ground, shattering another part of the arena. Aang noted the defensive and offensive nature of the move but remained undeterred. Preparing for an explosive attack, Aang manifested an image from his crimson aura. Yao Tang was shocked to see the enormous image emerging, but Aang suddenly disappeared. The attack turned out to be a feint, with Aang positioning himself behind Yao Tang, utilizing the dust to cover his presence. This triggered Yao Tang, familiar with the move, but it was too late as Aang's fist had already breached Yao Tang's defenses. In the distance, Shuan Gong surmised that Yao Tang had lost the fight. However, at the arena, it was revealed that Aang had intentionally missed his strike. Yao Tang was shocked and questioned if Aang had missed on purpose. Calmly, Aang explained that he was aware of Yao Tang's technique of restraining opponents and that if Yao Tang hadn't held back earlier, Aang wouldn't have been able to fight back. Aang pointed out that the headbutt had disoriented Yao Tang, causing him to see afterimages of Aang, which Aang had cleverly used to his advantage. Aang proudly asked Yao Tang to confirm his genius based on their fight. Though Yao Tang still doubted, the massive fist mark on the arena wall from Aang's explosive punch indicated otherwise. Shuan Gong, witnessing the spectacle, contemplated a mysterious agenda that could turn into a possibility. Just as the fight concluded, Lu, Snow, and Tomo arrived at the arena to see what was happening. Tomo was shocked by the sight of the devastated arena. The squadron leaders gathered with Aang and Yao Tang. While Joel mocked Yao Tang for losing, Aang humbly suggested that perhaps Yao Tang was so accustomed to fighting demons that a human opponent presented a new challenge. Acknowledging Aang's humility, Shu and Gong called them off to celebrate with dinner as the test had concluded. Aang gladly accepted the invitation, as he was starving, and went ahead. As Aang walked past him, Shu and Gong pondered the young man's positive demeanor and prowess. Then, looking at his daughter Lu, he bluntly asked if she could be interested in Aang. The outrageous question both shocked and embarrassed her. Chapter 22. At the Situ Manor, warriors gathered in the dining room for a celebratory feast hosted by the homeowner, Situ Shu and Gong. They raised their glasses to commemorate the successful defense against the hordes of monsters that had recently attacked the city. Shu and Gong specifically toasted to Aang, the man who had saved his daughter Lu. Aang, displaying humility, declined the honor, asserting that it was a warrior's duty. As he attempted to drink a glass of wine, Yao Tang playfully knocked his head, reminding him that he was still underage. Aang argued that he was already 18, a requisite age for participating in the warrior exam. Shu and Gong agreed, glancing at his daughter, Lu, a glance laden with meaning based on their earlier conversation. Following the warrior's departure from the arena, Shu and Gong and Lu had discussed Aang. Shu and Gong admired Aang's talent and capabilities, subtly probing his daughter to discern if she was attracted to him. Despite Lu's high pride, she struggled to respond, feeling outraged at her father's traditional stance and desiring the freedom to choose someone based on attraction. Instead, she deflected by recounting Aang's earlier, seemingly foolish, move of almost undressing her. Returning to the present, Tomo expressed amusement at the delicious food before them, capturing the moment with her camera. Snow revived the inquiry about how Aang had repelled the one-finned demon. Caught off guard, Aang stuttered in response, but Yao Tang intervened, explaining how Aang could utilize the core's power to boost his strength exponentially. Gel added her insights, drawing parallels between Aang's ability and the squadron leader's capacity to utilize their cores. She emphasized the potential dangers, reiterating that Aang lacked proper training. Joel, alongside her, commented on Aang's spiked strength during their spar, suggesting that Aang needed more training to prevent his body from being overwhelmed by the energy he absorbed. Amidst the squadron leader's patronizing comments about his supposedly weak body, Aang remained silent. He resisted the urge to disclose the truth about absorbing the two one-fin demon's cores and utilizing the demon's regeneration ability to compensate for the toll of enormous energy. Exposing these details would only invite further suspicion, so he chose to keep them to himself for now. Playing along with the squadron leader's perception of him seemed the wiser course of action. Joining the conversation, Aang agreed with the squadron leaders, maintaining the facade of having a weak body in need of more training. Snow was amazed at this new revelation of Aang's ability and vowed not to lag behind him. Even Lu, who had initially doubted Aang, was amazed and surrendered to the idea since he had saved her. Yao Tang shifted the conversation to Aang and Lu's violation of the city rules by going out at night. Initially planned for punishment, their actions had been cancelled due to their successful defeat of a one-fin demon, much to Aang and Lu's relief. However, Joel reminded them that the squad competitions were ongoing, cautioning them not to be too celebratory about their vindication. Gel added a reminder that their squad still held the lowest rank, urging Aang and Lu to push themselves harder if they aimed to reach the top. Aang wholeheartedly agreed, proudly declaring their determination to aim for the highest rank. A month passed since the demon invasion, and the competition for team points reached its peak. Teams, in pursuit of more points, began taking on A-ranked missions, making them increasingly difficult to obtain due to scarcity. In response, Lu and the squad deliberated and arrived at a crucial decision. They opted to seek what many might term a fat sheep or a golden goose, meaning they would use their points to challenge other teams. The Black Gun Squad, encountered earlier, became their first target. Approaching them, Aang and his team challenged them to a solo battle for 10 points. The leader of the Black Gun Squad hesitated due to the high value of the bet but eventually agreed, boldly proclaiming that this time, there would be no squadron leader to intervene, allowing them to beat Aang's squad without restraint. At the town battle arena, a sizable crowd had gathered to witness the clash between the two squads. Many onlookers mocked and criticized Aang's team, dismissing their move as desperate and expecting them to fail. Beneath the stage, Aang and Black Gun engaged in conversation as Lu and Black Gun's teammate ascended the arena for their bout. Black Gun arrogantly urged Aang to admit defeat while he still could, but Aang remained calm, asserting that the true winner had yet to be determined. Aang questioned why Black Gun wasn't the one representing their squad, considering Lu was supposed to be his match as the leader of Aang's team. Black Gun responded with arrogance, citing gender as a reason and appointing their vice captain, also a girl, claiming she was sufficient to face someone like Lu. Aang ignored Black Gun's underestimating remarks about their team leader, smiling, and advising him not to underestimate Lu. The match commenced, and Lu confidently suggested they end it quickly. Her opponent recognized Lu as a member of the well-known C2 family, a martial arts powerhouse in Helios City. Undeterred, the opponent gladly accepted Lu's challenge, her blue agility aura emanating as they prepared for the fight. Lu, surrounded by the aura of her green regeneration core, swiftly lunged towards her opponent, delivering a lightning-fast punch. The opponent, who managed to block Lu's strike, was taken aback by Lu's intense speed. In a moment of distraction, Lu exploited the opening and disarmed her opponent with a strike enhanced by her core ability. The opponent, shocked by the swift turn of events, dropped her weapon due to Lu's skill. Lu's suspicions were confirmed as she theorized that her opponent's squad, despite graduating before them, relied solely on teamwork and neglected individual training, rendering them incompetent at solo battles. It was too late for Lu's enemy, as she infused her attack with energy, causing her opponent's muscles to spasm out of control, leaving her helpless and open to incoming attacks. Lu followed up with an intense beating, leaving Black Gun watching with terror as his teammate was thrashed in the arena. Thus, the first match concluded with Lu triumphant. She left the arena, snobbishly thanking her opponent for letting her win. As she descended, onlookers chattered, praising her skills, and mocking her teammates for relying solely on her capabilities. The outcome of the match infuriates Black Gun, leading him to volunteer as Lu's next opponent. He increased the stakes, raising the bet to 20 points this time, to which Lu gladly accepted. However, Aang interrupted, reasoning that she had just finished fighting and needed a break, so he would take her place instead. Chapter 23. Black Gun was outraged by Aang's sudden interference, expressing his desire to face only their team captain, Lu. Aang, in response, provided a logical explanation, stating that as Lu was their captain, it was only fitting to face Aang first before challenging Lu herself. He goaded Black Gun, asserting that Black Gun lacked the capability to fight him. This provocation worked as Black Gun impulsively accepted the challenge, surprising his teammates as he fell into Aang's obvious bait. The two contenders ascended the stage, preparing for their impending battle. Black Gun's primary weapon was a potent gun, which he exchanged for a training version using air bullets to reduce lethality while maintaining pain. Aang expressed surprise at the existence of such a weapon in this day and age but confidently warned Black Gun to aim well, despite Black Gun's reputation as an exceptional marksman. Unfazed, Black Gun welcomed Aang's confidence, suggesting that Aang could use any weapon he desired to avoid claims of unfairness after the bout. Aang, contemplating a choice of weapons, reminisced about a weapon from his past life but ultimately decided to use his bare fists. Black Gun and his team were shocked by Aang's choice, ridiculing him for what they perceived as arrogance. Black Gun guaranteed that he wouldn't give Aang any chances and handicap as he refused his gracious offer to choose any weapon, but Aang casually brushed off his opponent's babbling. On the sidelines, Aang's team engaged in conversation, with Snow humorously mocking Black Gun's team, confident that Black Gun was in for a surprise, unaware of Aang's recent accomplishments, defeating a one-fin demon and sparring with their squadron leader, Yao Tang. Tomo, in particular, was excited for Aang's fight. Lu, however, remained quiet, troubled by the thought that Aang might be significantly stronger than her. She grappled with the idea that, as a team captain, she might be weaker than her own teammate. The recollection of her recent conversations with her father about Aang kept troubling her, and she worried that these thoughts were becoming more frequent. Back at the arena, the battle between Aang and Black Gun commenced, with Black Gun quickly retreating to a distance advantageous for his ranged weapon. His plan was to shoot Aang before he could close in. However, Aang's mind was solely focused on his goals, to secure first place and surpass his achievements from his past life. With the squadron leaders already aware of the extent of his strength, there was no need for him to hide it. Black Gun halted a short distance away, believing he had found the perfect position to attack Aang. He aimed and fired his first bullet, confident it would hit. Yet, Aang, utilizing his demonic power, dodged the bullet at a thrilling speed. Swiftly, he turned and rushed towards Black Gun. Anticipating this, Black Gun attacked again, faster and with a tracking ability. The barrage of bullets, unleashed at high speed, was meant to overwhelm Aang. However, this was part of Aang's plan to showcase his strength. Activating the Water Demon's abilities, Aang skillfully dodged the multiple bullets and closed in on Black Gun. Frustrated, Black Gun realized he was in a bind and decided to use his ultimate skill, the accurate explosive bullet. Charging his gun with energy, he plans to unleash a burst of energy towards Aang. Just as Black Gun was about to fire, Aang activated his wood-type ability, conjuring a vine to restrain Black Gun's foot and disrupt his balance. The bullet intended for Aang is shot upwards, leaving Black Gun vulnerable to Aang's assault. Aang swiftly disarmed Black Gun, sending him flying across the arena with a powerful kick. As Black Gun lay on the ground, clutching his stomach in disbelief, Aang slammed the confiscated gun and demanded the 20 points owed for the defeat. Black Gun, still reeling, couldn't comprehend the turn of events. Aang's team celebrated another victory, earning more points. Lu remained silent, reflecting on Aang's incredible speed and footwork that she struggled to follow. Aang's team's success attracted the attention of other teams and young warriors, prompting more challengers. Even older, more experienced teams took up the challenge. With each battle, their points steadily increased and their team rose swiftly in the ranks. At the end of the month, Team Lu achieved first place in squadron leader Yao Tang's ranks, securing their spot in the final competition. The stage was set for the ultimate showdown among the top 3 teams. Chapter 24. In the corridors of the Colosseum, Joel engaged in a conversation with his fellow squadron leaders about the sudden rise of Lu's team to the top of the rankings. He commended them on the remarkable achievement of surpassing the other 8 teams so swiftly. Jel provided the details, explaining how the team strategically bet their points, winning more than they lost. However, she criticized Yao Tang for not intervening, deeming their method messy and desperate. Yao Tang defended his decision, stating that since the team relied on their own strength to earn points, there was no need for him to intervene. With the combined strength of Aang, Lu, Snow, and Tomo, the team was a formidable force. Joel noted that it was the first time in many years that a new team had joined the finals, and word had spread about their accomplishments. The 3 leaders braced themselves as Yao Tang opened the doors leading to the arena, signaling the commencement of the annual team competition. Upon entering the arena, they were greeted by the 2 top teams, Joel's Brilliant Squad and Jel's Star Flower Squad. One of Jel's curious team members thoughtlessly asked Yao Tang what Lu's team ate to become so strong and ascend the ranks rapidly. Joel's team displayed an arrogant demeanor, snidely remarking on Yao Tang's team being newcomers. On the Colosseum grounds, Aang's team glanced at the other teams above the stands, preparing their bodies for the upcoming competition. Snow shared information about the renowned status of the 2 top teams in Helios City, with rumors even circulating about the next 3 squad leaders being selected from them. Aang remained unfazed, suggesting they work harder if the other teams were as impressive as Snow described. In his mind, he was confident that even with his seemingly frail body, borrowing demonic power would enable him to compete with a one-finned level warrior like Yao Tang, making it feasible to secure first place. Jel arrived at the grounds, calling for the teams to gather. Her squad eagerly assembled, expressing their desire to visit a B-rank city once they secured first place to buy clothes. The leader of the Brilliant Squad mocked the girls for their seemingly superficial goals, emphasizing their focus on meeting stronger warriors in B-rank cities. The girls fired back, asserting the importance of buying clothes for them. As the 2 squads exchanged banter, Joel and Yao Tang arrived at the grounds. Joel teased the 2 squad leaders about potentially falling for each other during their argument. Yao Tang glanced at his squad and called them to join the assembly, signaling the beginning of the competition. He then explained the structure of the finals, detailing its 2 segments divided into team and solo battles. The accumulation of points from these encounters would ultimately determine the triumphant team. Gel, following Yao Tang's lead, heightened the anticipation by teasing the upcoming revelation of the competition's prize. With an infectious enthusiasm, she assured the participants that the reward would exceed expectations. Joel stepped into the spotlight, maintaining the suspense around the prize. In a dramatic reveal, he announced that the victorious team would earn the coveted opportunity to stay and intern at a B-rank city for a week. The room buzzed with excitement as participants absorbed the significance of the prize, recognizing it as the fulfillment of their aspirations. The prospect of stepping into a B-rank city fueled their determination to secure the top position. As the three squad leaders approached Yao Tang to draw lots, the atmosphere crackled with a mix of nervous energy and eager anticipation. Meanwhile, the remaining participants fervently discussed the potential of visiting a B-rank city and the substantial opportunities it could present. In contrast, Aang remained contemplative, absorbing the new information. In his previous existence, cities didn't adhere to a hierarchical ranking system. Survival was each city's individual responsibility. Snow had enlightened him about the city ranking system, categorized based on warriors' strength and abilities. Cities with 1 and 2 finned core warriors held a C rank status. Those with 2 and 3 finned cores attained B rank, while A rank cities boasted 3 and 4 finned core warriors. The Apex, an S rank city named Breaking Dawn, or the City of Hope, were responsible for evaluating these cities. Breaking Dawn City, with its colossal 5 finned and 6 finned core warriors, also claimed the strongest 7 finned core warrior in its residence. Aang's mind drifted to memories of the city he once led, comparing it to this present S-rank city. A lingering question emerged: could his former city and comrades still exist in this age? However, Aang is snapped back to the present as Tomo interrupted his daydreaming, alerting him that Lu had already drawn the lot for their battle. Lu had selected the first skirmish, lining up their squad against the formidable Brilliant Squad. Tomo, noticing the opposing squad had a distinct name, pondered if their own team needed a catchy moniker. Aang agreed, suggesting they discuss on this matter after the impending clash. However, unbeknownst to them, Lu, their squad leader, concealed her nervousness beneath a composed exterior. The overconfident leader of the Brilliant Squad directed his teammates to target opponents on the enemy team, boldly declaring his intention to face off against Lu. As Yao Tang signaled the commencement of the match, the Brilliant Squad swiftly moved to encircle Lu's team. Observing the enemy formation, Lu discerned their strategy for solo battles. Unperturbed, she remained committed to the team approach. Aang recognized Lu's quick understanding of the enemy's plan and maintained the tactic of attacking the opposing leader immediately, exploiting the vulnerability inherent in solo battles, the individual's focus. Should the team leader fall, the morale of the entire squad would crumble. Aang applauded Lu for her adept assessment of the situation. The Brilliant Squad members continued their flanking maneuver but noticed Lu's team going head-on for their leader. They quickly altered their tactics to target Lu instead. Unfazed, Lu calmly directed her teammates to cover her as she proceeds to engage the enemy squad leader. The Brilliant Squad leader, witnessing Lu's approach, braced himself with confidence for the impending clash. Thank you for joining me on another thrilling journey of demonic evolution manhwa. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates. Your support fuels my passion to bring you more exciting content. Stay tuned for more captivating chapters only here on JockJut Manhwa. Until our next adventure together.
During the first round battle with Brilliant Squad, Liu faces a formidable opponent, Jiol, the blonde with the ability to generate blinding light attacks using a red orb. As Jiol unleashes his powerful light attack, Liu shields herself and advises her teammates to close their eyes. Surprisingly, even the Jiol's own teammates are affected by the blinding light. Looking at the battle, Starflower squad leader Gel expresses frustration at Jiol's reckless use of the blinding technique in team battles. Meanwhile, Aang intervenes, intercepting the Jiol's attack effortlessly. Aang, wearing water-based visors, questions Jiol about the impact of his technique on his own teammates. And with a swift and powerful kick, Aang dislocates the blonde man's shoulder, preventing him from executing further attacks. Using water visors, Aang had protected himself from the blinding light, showcasing a strategic use of the water element. Aang, showing confidence in Liu's abilities, leaves the rest of the battle to her. Despite the blonde man's initial arrogance, he finds himself incapacitated due to the dislocated shoulder. Liu, now aided by Aang, seizes the opportunity to attack the blonde man relentlessly and delivers a decisive blow to win the battle. The defeat shakes the Brilliant Squad, and the remaining members decide to surrender. The story then transitions to the upcoming battle between Liu's team and the Starflower Squad. Irritated by the defeat, walking away from the battlefield, the leader of the Brilliant Squad, Jiol, warns Starflower Squad to be aware that they will be Liu's team's next opponents. Jiol, observing from above, mentions that all weapons have been changed to training weapons for the next battle. The Starflower Squad, determined to overpower Liu's team, moves out with a clear plan. As the battle starts, Snow charges up his powers and delivers a powerful punch to the ground, creating shockwaves and providing cover for Aang to use his green powers effectively. Aang successfully entangles the Starflower Squad with wooden branches, showcasing his ability to manipulate multiple elements. Snow and Aang coordinate their attacks, leaving the Starflower Squad struggling to maintain their formation. Liu, joined by Tamo, engages in a joint attack against the Starflower Squad's leader. With Aang and Snow dominating their respective battles, the Starflower Squad faces defeat. The Starflower Squad's leader, Jiol, realizing the strength of Aang and recalling the earlier warning from Jiol, understands the challenge they face. The Brilliant Squad celebrates their success, having won all their battles in the team competition. As the competition transitions to solo battles, tensions rise between the Brilliance and Starflower Squads. Both team leaders express a desire to challenge Aang, setting the stage for intense one-on-one battles in the upcoming solo competition. Aang suggests a daring move, challenging both team leaders simultaneously. Facing off against the leaders from the Starflower and Brilliant Squads, Aang contemplates the seriousness of this final battle. Jiol remarks on feeling underestimated, but the female captain, Jiol, is determined to make Aang regret his arrogance. As referee issues instructions, the two captains rush to Aang's sides, executing their coordinated plan. Aang, however, surprises them by swiftly moving and appearing in front of the Jiol, shocking both opponents. The blonde captain, annoyed by Aang's sudden move, questions his ease of takedown, warning him not to underestimate them. A flashback reveals the blonde captain's plan to win the battle quickly. He hands a special battle visor to the female Captain Jiol, shielding her eyes from his intensified light skills. The plan hinges on her attacking Aang immediately after his blinding flash, with the visor providing protection. Returning to the present, the blonde Captain Jiol unleashes a flash 5 times stronger than before. Squads cover their eyes, expressing concern over the intense energy being gathered. Tamo, attempting to capture the moment, complains about the blinding light. The female captain, focused on the battle, aims to exploit Aang's potential loss of sight. In a crucial moment, Aang covers his face just before the flash attack, leaving the female captain to strike blindly. Aang quickly outsmarts the Jiol's attempt to strike him, revealing his awareness of her role in the coordinated attack. Sensing his intimidating gaze, she freezes momentarily, providing Aang the opportunity to unleash his water element skill. Water forms a clenched fist, tightly gripping the female captain, who grunts in pain. Meanwhile, Jiol struggles to execute his light attack, perplexed by the unexpected turn of events. Aang, now done with Jiol, shifts his attention back to the blonde captain, apologizing for the impending failure of their plan. Employing both water and wood elements, he ensnares Jiol in branches and throws both captains to the side. As smoke engulfs the battleground, concerns arise about potential injuries to the young warriors. Jai Yeotang, leaping down from the stands, checks on them. The smoke clears to reveal Aang standing victorious over the incapacitated captains, holding the special battle visor. His team, led by Snow's enthusiastic celebration, gathers to congratulate him. Liu remains contemplative, sensing that Aang conceals something. Jai Yaotang commends the team for winning the competition, praising Aang's surprising and strategic battles. Aang, however, humbly deflects the praise, asserting his confidence in his original strength. As they discuss plans for B-rank city, Jai Yaotang decides to guide them through the safer underground route. Despite Jiol's reminder of potential no-fin demons, Jai Yaotang reassures them of their safety. As the team heads back, they engage in conversation, with Snow excited about encountering 3-finned core warriors in B-rank city. Tamo offers to help Snow with photography, and Liu contemplates her plans. Jiol expresses his awe at Aang's formidable strength, a sentiment echoed by Jai Yaotang, who envisions Aang's continued progress. The team looks forward to their journey through the abandoned underground tunnels, a relic of past prosperity now repurposed for intercity travel. Meanwhile, a warrior fleeing through the tunnels encounters a horrifying fate and is torn apart by a double-fin demon, who boasts about its killing record as it holds onto a warrior's head, expressing boredom and confusion. Meanwhile, Tamo marvels at the tunnels, snapping photos as Jai Yaotang leads the group. He tells them about the tunnel's ancient origins and its abandonment due to a decline in elite soldiers and energy crystal scarcity after the Battle of the Breaking Dawn. Tamo playfully connects Aang's name to the era of the king with the same name, teasing Aang. Jai Yaotang, irritated, scolds Aang, clarifying it's just a shared name. Snow and the Ice Queen find the situation amusing. Jai Yaotang composes himself and leads the group, emphasizing awareness. Aang, who suggested the tunnels back then, feels a sense of shame as he realizes they are a complex maze. Snow inquires about energy crystals, likening them to demon cores. Jai Yaotang explains that refined demon cores form powerful energy crystals, crucial for city functions. The group is heading to Pether City for crystal distribution, increasing experience and knowledge. Tamo raises concerns about a city's core depletion, prompting Jai Yaotang to reveal the catastrophic consequences resulting in complete paralysis and defense failure of the city that would require a mass displacement. Despite the severity, Jai Yaotang reassures the group that Helios City's energy crystal can sustain them for at least 3 months, and by then they would have collected energy crystals for the future use, so there is no need to worry. However, Jai Yaotang emphasizes the need for constant readiness due to the presence of formidable warriors in the Pether City, including a triple-finned core warrior with a remarkable 69% synchronization rate. Meanwhile, Aang reflects a more formidable 7-fin core warrior with a 96% synchronization rate among them. As Tamo discovers a mysterious red button, Aang intervenes urgently, preventing her from pushing it. Jai Yaotang explains that it's an emergency button to close tunnels forcibly during critical situations, and an important sign above the button indicates its use for absolute closure. An unsettling feeling overtakes them, and Aang senses an approaching bloodlust. Activating his core, he readies his dagger as the group prepares for an imminent threat. Blood splatters throughout the tunnels, originating from Pether City. A wounded warrior from the Pether City collapses before them, revealing a demonic wave attack. Jai Yaotang, visibly alarmed, questions the warrior, learning that the abandonment siren has been sounded, signifying the loss of all warriors in the city. The news shocks the squad, prompting Liu to inquire about the siren's significance. Jai Yaotang solemnly explains that the siren only sounds when all warriors in a city have perished. The realization sinks in, leaving the squad horrified at the magnitude of the demon invasion. Amidst the darkness, a light emerges, stabbing the wounded warrior before their eyes. The group watches helplessly as a demonic voice reveals its mission to eliminate all remaining survivors. The demon, expressing disdain for leaving any witnesses, swiftly dispatches the wounded warrior and breaks through the tunnel wall. As the demon advances towards Jai Yaotang and the squad, it ominously declares its intent to exterminate them all. The group encounters a menacing double-fin demon with a red core and a fiery element, boasting a grim record of 21 newbie warriors, 10 single-finned warriors, and 2 double-finned warriors. The demon, wielding a deadly scythe, targets Snow for its first attack. Jai Yeatang intervenes just in time to prevent Snow's demise, but the struggle leaves Jai Yeatang wounded and the demon impressed by his skill. Recognizing the demon's strength, Jai Yeatang realizes he can't withstand another similar blow. Prioritizing the safety of the group, Jai Yeatang grabs Aang's arm, signaling a retreat. The demon hesitates momentarily, questioning whether to pursue, but ultimately lunges forward with incredible speed. Liu notices a button and urges Jai Yeatang to press it to seal the tunnel. However, the demon appears behind them, threatening their demise. In a bold move, Aang pushes Jai Yeatang and the others away from the demon's grasp, creating a chance for escape. As the group tumbles to safety, Aang stands alone against the advancing demon. Anxiously, Liu urges him to join them, but the tunnel doors begin to close. Aang, separated from the group, faces the demon inches away. Liu desperately knocks on the ceiling doors, calling out to Aang. The doors close, leaving Aang on the other side with the demon. Tomo expresses concern about facing a double-fin demon, and Snow echoes worries about leaving Aang behind. The group grapples with the ethical dilemma of abandoning their comrade. Jai Yeatang recalls Aang's last words, emphasizing the importance of protecting the group. Despite the dire situation, Jai Yeatang urges everyone to remain calm, explaining that Aang sacrificed himself to create an opportunity for their survival. Liu urges Jai Yeatang to break open the reinforced metal door to rescue Aang, but Jai Yeatang reveals the door's resilience against attacks, even from a triple-fin demon. Snow pleads for a solution, and Tamo suggests seeking help from Gel and Jial. However, Jai Yeatang dismisses the idea, realizing there's another route leading to Ranka City. Recognizing the route to Ranka City, Jai Yeatang leads the group, believing Aang can endure until their return. Meanwhile, at the metal doors, Aang surprises the red-fin demon by stabbing its mouth with his dagger. Activating his core, Aang kicks the demon away and unleashes his demonic energy, leaving the demon in awe. Aang taunts the demon, revealing his uncertainty about being both human and a demon. Aang reflects that he would have tried transforming in front of the group, but he is glad that he can go all out now. Aang expresses curiosity about the red-fin demon's fire element, while the demon recognizes Aang's power as that of a single-fin demon but underestimates him. Aang utilizes his wood-bending skill, creating tree branches to attack the red-fin demon. The demon counters with a powerful pillar of flames, but Aang remains calm. The demon launches a fireball, but Aang skillfully dodges using the tree branches. The demon mocks Aang's wood skill, commenting that it is no match for his fire skills. While approaching the demon, Aang deals a heavy blow to its back, and out of the box, Aang reveals his water-bending skill, shocking the demon. Aang grabs the demon's core, covering it in water, leading to an explosive reaction. As the dust clears, Aang emerges victorious, holding the defeated demon's head and core. However, a horde of demons emerges from the shadows, growling menacingly. Undeterred, Aang remains composed, ready to face the incoming threat. Observing the approaching finless demons, drawn by the echoes of battle, Aang contemplates the fire element double-finned core in his hand. Curious about the power it might bestow upon him, he shatters the core, unleashing a wave of fiery aura that envelops him. With a raised fist covered in flames, he declares the devil's fire as his power. The core on his chest absorbs the flame aura from his hand, and as he closes his eyes to absorb the red-fin demon's power, a bright line appears on his face and body. Bending over, his hair grows longer, signifying the completion of his double-fin demon form. As countless finless demons rampage toward him, Aang recalls the red-fin demon's powers. Forming a ball of fire in his mouth, he releases a devastating wave of flames, incinerating the approaching demons in a single shot. Moving effortlessly through the flames, he informs the demons that he will use their screams to console the dead soldiers in the tunnels. His demonic aura becomes more vivid as he re-enters the tunnels. There he finds an exit, damaged and surrounded by debris. Aang's explosive attack widens the opening, and Aang steps out to a shocking sight. Numerous civilians lie dead around him, and the once proud bank city of Pether is now in ruins. Aang walks past the endless corpses, recognizing this as a high-rank demonic wave. He spots a fallen fellow soldier killed by a wood element, concluding it was a single strike from a demon. Seeing another damaged area nearby, Aang fears the power of a skill with a large area of effect, speculating the presence of a triple-fin demon. Recalling Jai Yeatang's mention of 2 triple-finned core warriors in Pether City, Aang wonders about their whereabouts as he navigates the city's ruins. His attention is caught by his watch and the crows circling above, leading his gaze to 2 warriors skewered and hung. These were the 2 triple-core warriors, now lifeless. Aang activates his witch ability skill, manipulating tree branches to reach the bodies. Taking them down, he places them on the ground, acknowledging their admirable warrior spirit. Closing the eyes of the triple-core warrior, Aang softly wishes them both to rest in peace, contemplating the terrible war. Recalling the countless warriors who fought against the demons, he reflects on the grim reality. Suddenly, a young boy appears behind him, shouting at the demons. Alarmed to find a survivor, the boy holds a dagger but trembles in fear. Tears well in his eyes as he notes Aang's appearance, identifying him as a high-level demon capable of mimicking a human form. The boy asserts that he won't let Aang desecrate the warriors' bodies. Aang wears a pained expression, realizing that the boy likely won't believe him based on his current appearance. The situation promises trouble. While immersed in his thoughts, 2 finless demons appear, swiftly attacking the young boy. Aang reacts in alarm, appearing beside the fallen boy and blasting the demons away with a single hit. Grasping the boy, he curses the presence of hidden finless demons within the city. Instructing the boy not to speak, Aang plans to heal him with his water element power called Recovery. However, life drains out of the boy, who questions Aang about his identity. As the boy succumbs to death in Aang's arms, a sad expression crosses Aang's face. The boy's question lingers in Aang's mind, prompting him to ponder whether he is currently a demon or a human. Aang continues to watch over the deceased young boy. Soon, a multitude of finless demons surrounds him. Aang slowly rises, his body leaking flames and demonic energy in every direction. As Aang contemplates whether he is more demon than human, but one thing remains constant, his unwavering determination to annihilate all demons. With wings forged of flames, Aang gazes at the approaching wave of finless demons. The battle commences as he stands alone, confronting the horde rushing toward him. Bending over, Aang reveals his flaming wings with a single movement, and he soars into the horde of finless demons. As he flies past them, a blob of light is left behind, erupting into bright explosions across the battlefield. Coming to a screeching halt, Aang admires the devastation he has wrought upon the demons. Experimenting with his newfound powers, he discovers that gathering flames behind him grants a speed boost and can be used akin to phosphorus powder to ignite explosions. Disappointed that he can't use it for flight, Aang decides to try something new. Rushing back to the demons, he seizes a red demon, embedding flames into its body. The resulting explosion surpasses any previous skill, prompting Aang to realize the potential of turning demon bodies into explosive weapons. Smiling, he throws the red demon into the midst of the horde, taunting them with a singing tone. Remaining finless demons in awe attempt to flee, but Aang intercepts them, creating pillars of fire that toast them to cinders. Standing among the burnt demon corpses, he reflects on the city in ruins. Switching off his demonic powers and returning to his human form, Aang contemplates the original plan to visit the city with Liu and the team. As squad leader, Jai Yeatang also needed to collect the energy crystal, essential for the city's survival. Realizing the urgency of the situation, Aang acknowledges that the road to Pether City is closed, and without an energy crystal, the city is at risk. Determined to secure at least one crystal, he resolves to find the hidden location. Aang finds himself clueless about where to start searching for the energy crystal. Realizing the futility of aimless running, he assesses the resources at his disposal. A sudden realization strikes him: he can utilize his wood element energy. Tree branches begin to materialize near his feet, and he spreads them across the city, guided by the belief that energy fluctuations surround the crystal's core. The vines snake around, scanning for these fluctuations, aiding Aang in detecting the crystal's exact location. Remaining still, Aang senses the vines reaching a spot with the crystal. His eyes snap open, confirming that he has found it. Without hesitation, he makes a mad dash towards the underground location indicated by the vines. Landing, he encounters machinery and wonders if it's the system maintaining the B-rank city's energy. An automatic broadcast message grabs his attention, instructing soldiers to guard the energy crystal. Aang surmises that the broadcast source is where the crystals are stored, prompting him to head there. Upon entering the room, he witnesses a shocking scene. Various energy crystals of different colors lie destroyed alongside dead warriors who attempted to protect them. Aang is furious, realizing that demons have ruined all the crystals. Passing the shattered crystals and corpses, he acknowledges the warriors' sacrifice, deducing that the demons had a specific goal in attacking this place. They were more clever than their predecessors, indicating a dangerous level of instruction. Aang sighs deeply, understanding that there are no intact energy crystals here. He plans to head to the military base for supplies and equipment, gritting his teeth at the knowledge that he must find energy crystals before returning to Helios City. If squad leader Jai Yaetang and his team encounter trouble, Helios City could be in jeopardy. Determined, Aang resolves to find a new city within 3 months and bring back an energy crystal. The battle preparation station's doors are destroyed, but light emerges from within the darkness. Aang presses hard on the pedal, bursting out of the walls in a new vehicle. Determined to find a new city for the crystals, he drives through the wilderness. Aang is aware that the unexplored wilderness outside the city thickens with mist at night. The desert terrain, once a thriving city, now serves as demon nests. Consulting a map, he notes the next city's location and direction. As Aang drives through the destroyed city, a figure appears in one of the ruined buildings. A knife cuts a rope, causing logs to drop dangerously close to Aang. Reacting swiftly, he turns the steering wheel, narrowly avoiding the logs. Stopping his vehicle, he emerges, wondering about the origin of the attack, realizing that it was not the work of demons but someone else.
When Aang stepped out of his vehicle, a girl suddenly appeared, aiming her gun directly at him. She demanded to know which hunting team he belonged to. Calmly, Aang replied that he wasn't part of any hunting team, he was merely a human warrior passing through the area. However, the girl remained suspicious, convinced that no warrior from the city would dare come to a place like this alone. She accused Aang of being a scout for the Silver Wolf hunting team. Aang firmly denied it, explaining that he wasn't affiliated with them, though he admitted it would be difficult to make her understand. Unconvinced, the girl fired a warning shot at the ground near Aang's feet. With a harsh voice, she ordered him to shut up and demanded to know if any members of her branded gun's hunting team were still alive. Aang answered that there was no way he could prove his innocence right now, and warned that pointing a gun at strangers wouldn't get her the answers she was seeking. As the girl hesitated and began to lower her weapon, Aang noticed more figures approaching from behind. Sensing his change in expression, the girl quickly raised her gun at him again. But before she could act, multiple bullets struck her arms, forcing her to drop her weapon. Aang turned and saw several men from the Silver Wolf hunting team advancing. The girl, wounded and unable to lift her arms, was quickly seized. One of the men grabbed her by the hair to get a better look at her face. Smirking at her beauty, he called out to his comrades, suggesting they could have some fun with her before taking her to their boss. Before the situation could worsen, Aang lunged forward and delivered a brutal kick to the man's face. Though he had hoped to stay uninvolved, it was clear now, the Silver Wolf hunting team were nothing more than thugs. Standing between them and the girl, Aang warned the others. They had one chance to leave before he made them regret staying. Ignoring his warning, another man pointed his gun at Aang. But with a swift movement, Aang seized the weapon with one hand, unleashing a surge of strength that flung the man backward. Stunned, the attacker gasped, asking whether Aang was even human or something else entirely. Without hesitation, Aang crushed the gun in his hand. His cold reply came like a thunderclap. Whether human or demon, it no longer matters to you. At that moment, a loud, chilling scream echoed through the air. Aang reassured the girl not to worry, mentioning that he possessed healing abilities. Amazed to find her wounds completely mended, the girl gratefully thanked him. She then remarked that she had heard only quadruple core warriors could trigger unique phenomena and easily wield such abilities. Curious, she asked if Aang was a quintuple core warrior. However, Aang simply smiled and replied that he was a double-finned core warrior, with abilities that were just a little more unusual than most. The girl thanked him again and apologized for having pointed a gun at him earlier. Aang graciously accepted her apology, then asked if she knew the way to the nearest city. The girl nodded, saying she did, but insisted she wanted Aang to bring her along as well. Aang hesitated, pointing out that they had only just met and didn't even know each other's names yet. He then asked why she was so eager to head to the city. The girl explained that the nearest settlement was Manhwa town, a tiny rank C city, but it had recently been seized by the Silver Wolf hunting team. A few days earlier, her own group, the branded gun hunting team, had attempted to reclaim the town but failed. Although they initially had a real chance of victory, they hadn't realized that the Silver Wolf's leader had recently broken through to become a triple-core warrior, drastically boosting his strength. She added that if helping to free the city wouldn't interfere with Aang's plans, she would be willing to assist him in any way she could. The girl further explained that the Silver Wolf's true motive for occupying Manhwa town was to seize its energy crystal. Hearing that the Silver Wolf dared to lay claim to a city's energy source ignited Aang's anger. Without hesitation, he told the girl to lead the way, declaring that either reason alone, the capture of the town or the theft of its crystal, was more than enough to enrage him. Aang journeyed alongside the girl toward Manhwa town. Upon reaching the outskirts, they discreetly concealed their vehicle nearby. As Aang spoke with her, a group of demons suddenly emerged from behind, but he swiftly neutralized them with ease, his abilities overwhelming their assault. After bringing the creatures to the ground, Aang remarked that killing them would only attract more with the stench of blood and death. He then turned to the girl and said it was time to move. She nodded, her expression bright with hope. In her mind, she marveled at Aang's strength, reassured that hope still remained. While hiding in a nearby bush, Aang grew uneasy. There were no guards patrolling the town, and the gates stood eerily wide open. Moments later, they spotted a man running out while carrying a child. Before he could escape, something, or someone, grabbed him and violently slammed his head into the ground. The girl, enraged, instinctively raised her gun, but Aang stopped her, warning that firing would reveal their presence. Suddenly, a massive hand reached through the doorway and dragged both the man and child back inside. Witnessing this, Aang and the girl immediately realized a powerful demon had taken over the town. Aang's thoughts raced. If a demon was indeed controlling the area, their original plan was no longer viable. They would have to rescue the townspeople one by one. Without hesitation, Aang surged forward toward the entrance, catching their enemies off guard. The girl followed quickly, stunned to see him effortlessly subdue two men from the notorious Silver Wolf hunting team. As she approached their fallen bodies, she noticed something disturbing. Their skin looked decayed, like they had been dead for days. She urgently warned Aang. Everyone inside the town might be members of the Silver Wolf team. But to her shock, Aang continued to cut down the enemies without hesitation. Upon closer inspection, he realized these weren't living opponents. They were corpses, reanimated and controlled by a demon with a sinister power. With this revelation, Aang's expression hardened. Mercy was no longer an option. He would destroy them all. While observing one of the corpses, Aang noticed a black, string-like aura attached to its head. Believing that he could track the demon through these auras, he informed the girl that he would search the city to see if any others were still alive. Without delay, he quickly followed the trail of the dark string, which led him to a castle. Aang kicked open the door and was met with a grim sight, the corpses of a father and his son. Realization struck him, he was too late. At the front of the hall stood the demon, who declared that everything in the city, whether dead or alive, belonged to her. She then invited Aang inside, expressing her curiosity to meet her latest visitor. The demon was a triple-finned demon, possessing the abilities of a purple core. Behind her, Aang spotted 3 energy crystals and began to wonder what her intentions were with them. Noticing the expression on Aang's face, the demon asked whether he was human or demon. Aang slowly approached and replied that In the presence of a corpse-controlling demon, even the Silver Wolf team leader, who had already ascended to a triple-core warrior, likely stood no chance. Upon hearing Aang mention the triple-core warrior, the demon abruptly summoned the warrior's corpse and commanded it to attack. Aang was forced backward, and from the shadows, he saw multiple warrior corpses begin to emerge. The demon had summoned them all to greet her guest. As he looked around, Aang realized with horror that these were not only the remains of the Silver Wolf hunting team, but of every warrior in the city. With a chilling laugh, the demon welcomed Aang to the party. The army of corpses charged toward Aang as he contemplated the threat before him, a triple-finned demon, while he remained in his double-finned form. If this demon had been a typical triple-finned type, the battle would have been far more dangerous. Fortunately, it was a purple-core demon, more adept at manipulating illusions and steering the flow of battle than engaging in direct combat. Summoning his fire element, Aang ignited his fists and unleashed a blaze, incinerating the corpses around him. Impressed by the result, the demon remarked that Aang did not seem like an ordinary human and invited him to fight. Aang replied that the decision had already been made. He had burned all the corpses, the demon's precious tools for battle. Enraged, the demon cursed his actions, lamenting how difficult those treasures had been to collect. Wasting no time, Aang leapt toward the demon, knowing that without bodies to command, her combat strength had been significantly weakened. Just as he was about to strike and destroy her core, the corpse of the child suddenly appeared, shielding it. Aang froze, hesitation flickering across his face. Seizing the opportunity, the demon launched a counterattack, landing a blow to Aang's abdomen. Fortunately, he managed to soften the impact by activating his water elemental powers, avoiding a serious injury. With a twisted smile, the demon revealed that she wasn't only skilled in manipulation, she also wielded the sharp and deadly gold element. Aang was caught off guard by this revelation, surprised to learn of her dual abilities. Aang suffered a deep injury and needed to heal the wound on his abdomen using his wood element healing ability. The demon, observing his condition, stated that she would have to take a risk in order to destroy him. She then commanded her corpse to bring an item that had been extremely difficult for her to obtain. Once the item was in her hands, the demon opened her mouth and began to slowly consume it. Although Aang didn't know what it was, he instinctively sensed that allowing her to absorb it would be dangerous. Gritting his teeth against the pain, he rushed forward without fully healing, determined to interrupt her. However, he was too late. The demon succeeded in consuming the item, and Aang was hurled backward by a surge of powerful energy. Shocked, Aang wondered where the demon had acquired such an intense burst of power. Could she really be extracting energy directly from the crystal? He found it hard to believe, as the energy stored in energy crystals was chaotic, refined and compressed by humans. If absorbed directly, that energy should cause any body to explode. It was a theory Aang had confirmed to be true in his previous life. He then noticed that while the energy within the demon's body was still raging, it had stabilized at a certain threshold. Could it be due to the mysterious substance she consumed earlier? Moments later, the demon began to evolve. Aang was stunned. It had used the energy within the crystal to forcibly trigger evolution. The transformation was successful. The demon had evolved into a quadruple-finned demon. Realizing this, Aang couldn't help but think he was in serious trouble. The demon summoned several small circular objects and positioned them around Aang. Using these objects, she launched a barrage of sharpened gold wind nail attacks. To defend himself, Aang conjured a wooden shield and hid inside it. However, the demon pierced through his defense with her sharp, golden foot, slamming Aang to the ground. Paralyzed by the impact, Aang couldn't move. Seizing the opportunity, the demon pinned his arm to the ground with her sharpened foot. She then morphed her hand into a blade, preparing to deliver the final blow. But just before the blade could reach him, the demon's movement abruptly stopped. Without warning, multiple black holes emerged in the air, twisting the space around her. Aang watched in shock as another demon stepped out from one of the black holes and grabbed the quadruple-finned demon by the head. "You can't be allowed to interfere with our plans," the new demon said coldly. With a terrifying ability, the newcomer compressed the quadruple-finned demon's body, ultimately killing her. As the corpse collapsed, its purple core was left behind, which the second demon casually took into her possession. Gazing at Aang with disdain, she muttered, "Humans like you can never be trusted." Aang was shocked to see an octuple-finned demon appear, and he immediately felt an overwhelming pressure. It was just like the red being that resided inside his body. Then it hit him. This was the same octuple-finned demon he had seen in his past life. The demon told Aang that if she left things as they were, they'd never know when the crimson-finned king would awaken. She mocked him, saying that for someone who was supposed to be the strongest among all humans, he was evolving far too slowly. Without warning, she used her ability to levitate Aang and forcefully embedded the purple core into his chest, attempting to evolve him directly into a quadruple-finned demon. Aang was stunned. She had just stuffed the quadruple-finned demon's demonic core straight into his chest. He knew that if he skipped over the triple-finned evolution stage, his body would explode. The power inside the quadruple-finned core was far too much for him to handle. The octuple-finned demon found Aang's reaction pathetic and questioned whether he was truly that weak. Aang, grimacing in pain, replied that his body wouldn't be able to withstand the energy and begged her to find another way to help him. In response, she cast an octagon spatial lock, sealing the space around him, and shouted, calling him a trash human, and demanding that he survive this ordeal. Aang could only grit his teeth, enduring the excruciating pain. Suddenly, the demon residing within his body awakened, irritated that his rest had been disturbed. Aang's body began to regenerate, his form shifting, transforming, until he emerged as the crimson-finned king demon. With newfound power, he broke free from the octagon spatial lock. The crimson-finned king told the obsidian-finned king that she shouldn't have interfered with the human's evolution. However, the obsidian-finned king, feeling excited, suddenly leapt toward him and embraced him, expressing her joy at his long-awaited appearance. It had been a long time since they last saw each other. She shared that she had been quietly observing the human from the shadows. But this time, his powers were no match for the newly evolved quadruple-finned demon. The crimson-finned king explained that his current form must undergo countless tribulations to be properly refined. Unlike their own kind, human bodies are frail, yet full of untapped potential. He clarified that Aang had only absorbed enough energy to evolve into a double-finned state, but the obsidian-finned king had forced him to skip a stage, pushing him into the next phase of evolution prematurely. The human's body wasn't even capable of withstanding the strain of absorbing energy from a quadruple-finned core. However, the energy that leaked from the core was enough to temporarily awaken the crimson-finned king from his deep slumber. He then warned the obsidian-finned king never to interfere in this human's evolution again. The process must unfold gradually, step by step, for only then can he become the perfect vessel. The obsidian-finned king responded that she would listen to whatever the crimson-finned king says. She then shared that during the time he pretended to be dead, the other 4 kings reached a stalemate, none of them willing to make the first move, despite harboring hidden ambitions. As he had predicted, they maintained a delicate equilibrium, constantly countering one another. The crimson-finned king noted that the other kings had once joined forces out of fear to fight against him. Yet even in his absence, their deep-rooted paranoia kept them in check. It seemed they were incapable of trusting one another, their old habits too deeply ingrained. Perhaps they had even forgotten the original purpose that once united them. Crimson then asked Obsidian how she had been, and whether the other kings were suspicious of her. Obsidian replied that even if they were, they likely lacked the time and energy to investigate what truly happened back then. She reassured him that she was fine, and told him not to worry about her. Obsidian gently touched Crimson's chest and expressed that all she wanted was to welcome the strongest version of him safely back home. Crimson smiled and assured her that she would, he was only a step away. He added that he had forcibly evolved Aang's body into the quadruple-finned state, but the boy still needed time to adjust and stabilize the immense power now within him. Crimson then reminded Obsidian not to interfere with the human any further. To maintain their cover, it was crucial to keep a low profile so that their greater plans wouldn't be compromised. As the 2 demon kings walked together, the girl accompanying Aang looked on in shock, wondering how beings like octuple-finned demons could exist. At that moment, the crimson-finned king made a sudden move, and a splash of blood followed. Meanwhile, Aang felt as though he were drowning, the girl's voice echoing in his ears, whispering that he was a demon too. When Aang regained consciousness, he saw the girl lying in front of him, her body covered in wounds and drenched in blood. Horrified, he looked down at his hands, trembling as the thought struck him, "Did I do this?" His entire body shook, and then he let out a furious roar. A powerful aura burst from within him, and in that moment, Aang transformed, his body evolving fully into the quadruple-finned form. Moving forward, Aang set the girl's body ablaze, along with the other corpses scattered throughout the small city. His heart weighed heavily with guilt. In his mind, he could never forgive himself for what had happened. He believed it was all his fault, for failing to suppress the demon's energy within him. Even though he had achieved the strength of a quadruple-finned form, he no longer cared to test the limits of his newfound power. There were more pressing concerns. His thoughts were a mess, and he needed time to reorganize them. That octuple-finned female demon, her terrifying ability still haunted his memory. What were these demons truly planning? And then there was the triple-finned demon that had used some strange equipment to force its evolution into a quadruple-finned state. Aang suspected that such advanced technology could only come from a top-tier city, perhaps even the city of Breaking Dawn. Regardless, he knew one thing. He needed to find a large town as soon as possible and inform leader Joel that he was still alive. He also worried about Liu and the rest of the team. Had they escaped the tunnel safely? Had they already made it to the city? Based on the information he had, continuing in this direction would eventually lead him to an A-rank city known as Pacadia. Meanwhile, the 4 other team members and Ji Yaotong have safely reached the A-rank city called Brian. The quintuple-finned core warrior and battle instructor, Kurt, explained that they could not dispatch any soldiers for a rescue mission, as they had just received news that the B-rank city of Pether had been overrun by a high-level demonic wave and completely destroyed. He speculated that the comrade named Aang, whom they had been discussing, was likely among the casualties. However, Ji Yaotong argued that Aang possessed a unique talent, and there was still a chance he had survived. The lieutenant replied that even in the A-rank city of Brian, there was no shortage of young warriors with extraordinary abilities, but despite their talents, none had managed to survive a high-level demonic wave. Ji Yaotong was unable to respond and felt a wave of disappointment. The lieutenant then added that in this apocalyptic world, no human life should be abandoned. While it was impossible to send reinforcements directly, he offered to instruct returning scouting warriors to check the ruins of Pether for any possible survivors. Ji Yaotong's face lit up with hope, and he thanked the lieutenant sincerely. The lieutenant said that he was a busy man and would take his leave, advising the visitors to make themselves at home. He also wondered whether the high-ranked demonic wave in Pether City would affect the upcoming demon hunting competition in the city of the Breaking Dawn. Ji Yaotong replied that he had heard about the competition as well, that it was going to be held soon. However, he pointed out that Helios City was only a C-rank city. The lieutenant responded that it didn't matter. If they were interested, they could stay for a few days to learn more about it. The only S-rank city, the City of the Breaking Dawn, would be hosting the demon hunting competition. The requirement for participation was for a city to be ranked at least B rank. Although Helios City didn't meet the criteria, the lieutenant added that the 3 young warriors behind Ji Yaotong might be eligible to participate in the future. Before the lieutenant exited the room, Ji Yaotong and his team bowed and thanked him for his kindness.